Hey, I'm Mr. Ghost. If you love true horror stories, consider subscribing. It really helps the channel grow. The stories you'll hear are shared by our audience from Reddit, and to keep their original essence, I read them exactly as they were written. Before we begin, let me know in the comments, where in the world are you listening from? Also, check the timestamps in the comments for story titles and easy navigation. Now, let's dive into the darkness. The tall man in my basement. The basement was cold and damp, the air thick and stale. He stood there, towering, his head nearly brushing the ceiling. His features were long and slender, limbs stretched unnaturally. His arms hung low, fingers almost grazing his knees. His legs, thin and bone-like, made him stand at an impossible 12 feet tall. His mouth stretched wide, too wide, an unnatural stretched mouth that revealed nothing but a black void inside. His eyes, deep and hollow, were pits of endless darkness, a void that seemed to pull everything in. I don't remember how it got there, or how it even got inside. All I know is I locked it deep in my basement, where it couldn't come out. Well, that was until I found the basement door wide open. "Hello," I said, staring into the dark basement that yawned open before me. My voice felt small, swallowed by the shadows below. Fear crawled up my throat, thick and sour, like I might throw it up. I slammed the door shut, my hands shaking. Then I heard it, soft rattling noises from the kitchen, gentle, deliberate, like something was moving in there. Something was in the house with me. I moved deliberately, each step slow and careful, my breath caught in my throat. I watched my surroundings, making no noise as I crept toward the kitchen. And then I saw it. The creature from my basement stood at the sink, its towering frame hunched awkwardly beneath the ceiling. It stared out the window, motionless, its long, slender limbs hanging at its sides. It didn't move. It didn't make a sound. It just stood there like it belonged. My heart slammed against my ribs as I bolted for the front door, feet barely touching the ground. I didn't dare look back. I didn't need to. The roar came first, splitting the air like a thunderclap. It wasn't human. It wasn't animal. It was deep, raw, and wrong, vibrating through my bones, rattling my teeth. My legs nearly gave out from the sound alone, but fear shoved me forward. I hit the door hard, bursting into the cold night air. My car was just ahead, parked in the driveway. My keys. I needed my keys. My hand dove into my pocket, fingers trembling as I fumbled them out. Behind me, the door exploded open with a splintering crack. Heavy, unnatural footsteps pounded against the ground. Fast, too fast. I didn't have to see it to know it was coming. I could feel it closing the distance. I reached the car, yanked the door open, and threw myself inside. My hands shook so badly the keys slipped from my fingers and hit the floor mat. No. I grabbed them again, forcing the key into the ignition. The engine sputtered, coughed, the sound of death. The creature lunged from the doorway, its long, bony limbs propelling it forward in a blur of twisted movement. It was nearly to the car. The engine roared to life. I slammed the gear into reverse, tires squealing as I stomped the gas. The car jolted backward, throwing me against the seat as the creature lunged, just barely missing the hood. Its empty black eyes locked onto mine for a split second, burning into me before I peeled out of the driveway. I didn't stop. My foot stayed pressed to the floor, the car flying down the long, dark street. The night swallowed everything around me, but I didn't care where I was going, as long as it wasn't back there. Days passed. I barely slept, holed up in a cheap hotel on the edge of town. The room smelled like old cigarettes and stale air, but it didn't matter. It had 4 walls and a locked door. Every night, I checked the window, just to be sure. That night was no different. I pulled back the curtain, heart already racing before I even looked. The parking lot below was empty, streetlights flickering weakly against the dark. For a second, I let myself believe I was safe. Then I saw it. Beyond the lot, past the stretch of cracked asphalt and the rusted chain-link fence, the woods began, thick, black trees rising like jagged teeth. And there, just at the edge where the trees met the night, it stood. The tall, twisted figure. It didn't move. It didn't blink. It only stared, watching me from the shadows. It found me. In an instant, I yanked the curtains shut, heart slamming against my ribs. My breath came in quick, shaky bursts. I sprinted to the door, peering through the peephole. Nothing. The hallway outside was empty, still and quiet. I didn't know how fast it was. I didn't know how smart it was, but it found me. Hours crawled by. The TV droned on in the background, some late-night sitcom I wasn't paying attention to. I kept glancing at the window, half expecting to see it again. Then came the knock. It wasn't loud, just a soft, deliberate tapping. My head snapped toward the door, dread sinking like a cold weight in my chest. Who the hell could that be? I slid off the bed, feet hitting the floor. Before I reached the door, I heard it. A voice. Hello? I need help. Help me. Help me. I need help. Help me. It didn't sound right. It was flat, robotic, like a bad recording played over and over. No emotion, no urgency. I froze, my throat tightened. If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police, I shouted, voice trembling. The voice didn't stop. Help me. I need help. Open the door. Open the door. Open the door. Open the door. It wasn't even yelling, just that same lifeless droning tone. That was the worst part. The calmness, like it wasn't asking, like it was telling. My hands fumbled for my phone. I dialed 911, fingers shaking so hard I almost hit the wrong numbers. The voice stopped. My stomach twisted. It was like it knew. The operator answered. I explained everything. The voice, the knocking, the thing in the woods. My words tumbled out fast, frantic. Well, send someone, they said, but it might take a few hours. A few hours. My heart sank. My hand shook so badly the phone nearly slipped from my ear. I didn't hang up. I didn't move. I just stared at the door, waiting. Out of fear, I asked, Could you just stay on the line until they come? I don't want to be alone. At first she hesitated. I'm sorry, sir. We can't do that. We have to answer other calls. Please. I cut in, my voice trembling. Please, I don't think I'll make it if I'm alone. There was a pause. I could hear her breathing on the other end. Then quietly, she said, Okay, I'll stay. Relief washed over me, but it didn't chase the fear away. My eyes stayed locked on the door. Her voice was calm, gentle. My name's Rachel. What's your name? I swallowed hard. It's James. All right, James. I'm here with you. You're not alone. My throat tightened. Thank you. I think it's still out there. Can you still hear the voice? She asked softly. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. No, it stopped when I called you, but the way it sounded, I paused, shuddering at the memory. It wasn't normal. It was like robotic, repeating itself over and over. Rachel was quiet for a moment, then said, You're doing great, James. Just stay with me. The officers are on their way. I nodded again, trying to steady my breathing, but deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that the quiet wasn't a good thing. It felt like the calm before something worse. Rachel's voice came through the phone again, steady but a little more serious. James, who's chasing you? Can you describe them? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My throat felt tight, like the words got stuck halfway up. I don't know, I said finally. It wasn't a lie, not really. It's tall, really tall. Its arms are too long. Its mouth. My voice trailed off. My mind replayed that black void, the hollow eyes. My stomach twisted. Too long? Rachel asked gently. James, are you saying it's someone wearing a mask or... No, I cut in, my voice cracking. It's not a mask. It's not human. The line went quiet for a moment. I heard her breathe in. James, she said slowly, carefully. Are you sure? Could it be someone in a costume, maybe? Sometimes, when we're scared, our minds... I know what I saw. I snapped, louder than I meant to. My voice echoed off the hotel walls, and I flinched at how desperate I sounded. Rachel didn't react. She stayed calm. Okay, I believe you. You're doing great. James, just stay with me, all right? The officers are still on their way. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't get a full breath. My eyes stayed locked on the door. I couldn't tell her the truth, not all of it. If I said a monster crawled out of my basement and followed me to a hotel, they'd think I lost my mind. Maybe I had. But the thing outside? The voice? It wasn't in my head. It was real. And it wasn't gone. An hour passed in what felt like seconds. The room was still, but I couldn't escape the feeling that something was wrong. My pulse thudded in my ears. Every breath a battle against the rising panic. Rachel's voice kept me tethered to reality. Her calm words a thread I clung to. Then, suddenly, a knock at the door. Knock, knock. I froze. The hairs on my neck stood up. Hello. This is the police. Open the door. This is the police. Open the door. A wave of relief flooded through me. I wasn't alone. Finally, the officers were here. I rushed to the door, heart pounding in my chest. I glanced at my phone to make sure I hadn't missed anything, and there it was. The call still connected, Rachel's voice as steady as ever. James, stay calm. They're on their way. I could hear the muffled voice of the officer outside repeating the same line. The door was within reach. I grabbed the handle, yanked it open, ready to let in the safety of the police. But there it stood. The creature. It towered, its limbs unnaturally long, bent in sickening angles, its black, empty eyes locked onto mine. The grin that stretched across its face was wide and chilling. Too wide. I looked down at my phone in my trembling hands. The screen read, 911, what's your emergency? A smile twisted across the creature's face. It wasn't the officer. It never was. I staggered back, my blood running cold. My stomach dropped into a pit of icy dread. And then it hit me. Rachel never asked for my location. I had never been on the phone with the police. I had been talking to it. God help me. Demon Hunter. Yup, you read that title right. I'm a fully certified demon hunter, government issue and all. Most people think demons are all some paranormal bullshit, just straight instances of possession of the human soul. You know, some real exorcist conjuring movie type stuff. But actually, our own government is using demon as a blanket term for all the ghoulies, mummies, werewolves, and the things that bump at night. Let me get this out of the way early. If there was a god, he wouldn't have made half the shit I've seen. You can be damn sure of that. Have you ever heard of the Grunch? Little feisty, ugly motherfucker she is. Smells like a rotting corpse layered in a pile of onions. Who would create that abomination to terrorize hard-working farmers, huh? Now, I've been in this profession for almost 13 years, and I still can't believe I've lasted this long. What I mean by that is I can't believe I haven't ended it by my own hand. This job is gritty as hell, and really takes a toll on you. I'm a greedy dog, just listening to the orders sent by the higher-ups. It wears on me. Most creatures from the depths of hell I've come across aren't what they're made out to be. They're just trying to survive, and see another day, like the rest of us. Most of the exterminations I do aren't justified. These beings are living creatures that deserve just as much right to live as anything else on this planet. I kill a lot, or capture a lot, of docile demons that don't mean anyone harm. But my greedy self keeps a blind eye for that green the good old government gives me. When I began my work, I justified it as helping humankind, knowing most of the creatures I'd encounter would be a danger to the good old American dream. But I knew all along they wanted to experiment on or use these creatures for whatever fucked up science project they had going. Didn't bother me at first. I loved the money too much, but it started itching at me over the years like a ticking clock. Sure, I've encountered some scum of the world that would hunt humans for sport, but most of them, they just want to live out their years secluded. But enough of my little rant of self-pity and regret. Just wanted to let y'all know these demons aren't all the glorified boogeymen they've been made out to be. Now, let me tell you about one of my first jobs. Young, cocky as hell, and ruthless as all get out. Ready to pull the trigger on a demon at a moment's notice. Got the text from the unknown number. Included the coordinates to pick up the file for my next job. I arrived at an abandoned hotel and went to room number 19. I swung the door open, dust flying everywhere, and found a nice, neat file folder laying on the cockroach-infested bed. I opened up the file and skimmed through it. The location was a small beach town in North Florida. Target's name, The Abyss, 9 feet tall on the dot, 450 pounds, covered in pitch black, long hair, and fitted with a nice pair of bright red eyes. Also listed were razor-sharp teeth and a pair of 5-inch claws to make the ultimate killing machine. Basically, the gist of it was a lot of dead deer popping up everywhere, and a couple of sightings by the locals. All the deer were found with a nice clean slit across their throats. The men in black swiftly came to diffuse any crazy talk between neighbors, gaslighting them into believing it was a rabid, oversized black bear, terrorizing the small town. Yeah, the men in black with their almost perfect clean suits exist, and they're fucking dicks. I was tasked with eliminating the target. Sounded like I was in for a lot. I arrived shortly after and did a little recon, which suggested finding the closest bar. They had this little place called Sundown, a tiki hut with the best margaritas on the beachside I've ever had. I didn't have too much to go off, but I knew the killings of the wildlife were near the locals, so that's where I'd start. Let me tell you, the government sure knows how to give me the best gear a man could dream of. I had high-tech night vision goggles that could track footprints from about a mile away, a fully geared out AR-15, and my lucky 1911. Always took it with me. My dad gave it to me when I was a boy, and it really meant a lot. I had one stim with me called a Keo, made from the best of the best the government could get. Basically, if I sustained a serious injury like a broken leg or a huge open wound, one stick of this and I'm brand new in seconds. Also grants some superhuman-like strength for a short time. Crazy what those motherfuckers can make now. I also picked up some special bear-like traps that would snap any normal human being's leg right in half. Once nightfall hit, I started setting up traps in the woods right across from the 2 households that saw the abyss most recently. Lot of woods in this area, including a huge state park right next to this beach town called Tate's Hell. Got a nice ring to it, huh? Did a little research into the place and found a story about local fishermen seeing what they called a skunk ape. No mistake, that had to be the same damn thing. I was posted about half a mile from the houses, had my night vision goggles on and was listening to some Fergie, waiting patiently, wondering if the abyss would make another appearance near here. I know Fergie, right, but her catalog's pretty good, especially when she was with the Black Eyed Peas. Couple hours go by with nothing, and I'm running out of Jack Daniels shooters, so I'm getting a little pissed off. Then around 3 o'clock, I see the thing appear on the other side of the woods near the houses. His name sure did live up to his reputation. He towered in almost complete darkness, except for those beady red eyes that left a glare in the night sky. He had a dark green vest on, with small pouches everywhere. I wondered where he got such a huge vest, and why the hell he was wearing it. I mean, it kinda stood out with his whole pitch black fur thing. I'd left him a little present on the edge of the woods, not in plain view. 3 deer with their necks slit from ear to ear. Watched him approach the bait. So now I know the fucker has a keen sense of smell. I moved him closer to position, wondering if my present would piss him off, thinking he's got competition. I got right by the houses, facing the woods. Not a single peep from the wildlife. Complete, utter dead silence. I saw the abyss, overwhelming dread hitting me as he made his soft, small steps toward the deer. He was reluctant to approach them and took a while just staring, maybe admiring the work. I felt sweat drip down my face as I slowly pulled out my assault rifle, careful not to make a sound. Finally, he stepped into the woods, and seconds later one of the deer's bodies came flying into the road. No head attached. The abyss let loose an ear-piercing screech of pure anger and bloodlust. My headphones blasting Black Eyed Peas Meet Me Halfway combust on impact. Surprisingly, the glass in the houses didn't shatter. Of course, that woke up the sleeping families. I could see lights flicker on and heard a couple of shrieks of terror. The abyss swiftly came back out, eyeing the first house with intent to destroy and conquer. I knew he was fast and deadly. I aimed at the target, took a deep breath, and knew my first priority was getting this thing far away from those families. I only had a few seconds to react. I shouted in my brain, "Just focus. You are better than him." Over and over, I pulled the trigger, unloading the full clip into the oversized Prince of Darkness. Then I began moving in on the target, finger still pulling the trigger. He tried shielding the bullets with his bulky arm but quickly became overwhelmed and ran off into the woods. I quickly threw the gun over my shoulder and, with no hesitation, followed the target. As I made it into the woods, I overheard the terror and confusion of the neighbors. Knew the cops would be there soon. I followed his footprints. Big enough they were easy to track. My plan was going accordingly. He took the bait, and I forced him into the woods where my traps were waiting. I kept tracking the prints under the moonlight, knowing I couldn't possibly keep up with him. He had to hit one of my traps. I kept tracking for 30 minutes, in almost a full sprint the whole time. Then I slowed down, pulled out my flask, and took a drink of God's nectar, bourbon whiskey. As I crept up, I realized the thing hadn't hit a single trap. I set out a decent amount. Then my heart sank. I lost him. My emotions got the best of me. I started overthinking about my paycheck and early resume. I snapped back into reality and realized I was in the middle of Tate's hell with a destructive force of nature pissed off at me. If I remember right, Tate's hell got its name from a guy who got lost in these woods for 7 days. Once he made it to the edge, he fainted and died on the spot. Really shitty way to go, if you ask me, right there at the finish line, but not strong enough to make it. I kept following the tracks, too determined to let this money go. Then I reached an open area, and the tracks disappeared, literally vanished. Nothing in sight. I pulled out my night vision goggles and scanned the area. Nothing. Not even a trace. I slowly looked up and saw a heat signature footprint on the tree in front of me. It kept going up. I dreaded the idea of looking up further, dropped the goggles in the dirt, pulled out my 1911 and stared directly above me. And sure enough, those goddamn red beady eyes looked right into my soul. My stomach twisted upside down, and I felt the whiskey about to come right back up. I didn't shoot. I held the gun in a firm grip, locked in on the target. I was frozen in fear for about 10 seconds, which felt like an eternity. I still had my lucky firearm trained on him. I knew if he moved a muscle, I would start shooting. In a flash, he dropped down, landing on his enormous bulky feet. I stepped back, feeling the adrenaline starting to kick in. I was about to pull the trigger. Then the abyss spoke in a dark, condescending tone. "What do you want from me, human?" If I hadn't pissed myself yet, that surely did it for me. The goddamn thing speaks. I had never heard a target speak up until now. I didn't mutter a peep, completely starstruck by this oversized behemoth pacing back and forth, slashing his claws together. He stopped in his tracks and stared at me. I noticed my bullets had managed to damage his hide, with a dark purple blood-like substance oozing out of him. Thank God for the government giving me some real-deal monster-killing bullets. He proceeded to state, "I do not hunt your kind, so what is your business with me? I honestly pity y'all disgusting creatures, always fighting with one another." I silently nodded in pure amazement. This thing speaks, and fluent English at that. So many questions were rushing through my head. The abyss inched closer to me, baring his shiny, almost metal-like teeth. He then said in a demanding voice, "I want to be left alone from your kind. If this is about the deer I slay, it is purely for entertainment for my lonely self." I twisted my head to the right and whispered, "What the fuck are you supposed to be?" He proudly puffed his chest out and began to laugh his ass off. Then he settled down, looked me square in the face, and said, "I will be the end of your wretched life if you don't leave me be, you insect." That hit a chord in me right there, and I switched my demeanor quickly. I gave the abyss a cocky smirk and let off 3 shots right at his red eyes. He covered his face quickly. I then threw my assault rifle off my body and slid right through his legs, pulling out my 2 knives from my back pockets. I struck and impaled both of his grimy feet. He let out a shriek, and I quickly got up and opened fire on his back. He turned around and rushed toward me. I managed to dodge his first slash and took off hauling ass. He caught up quickly and picked me up with ease, throwing me into a tree. I looked up and saw one of his eyes completely shut, with the same substance oozing out. He then proudly said, "I'm impressed by you. Quick on your feet, but you will pay with your life for such foolishness." I stood up and took off running to the right of him. He opened up his pouches and pulled out 8 knives, each twice the size of his claws, and began throwing them at me with precision. I evaded most of them by ducking for cover behind the trees, but one slipped through and hit me right in the thigh. I bit my lip and pulled it out, blood gushing everywhere. I slipped the knife into my back pouch. My adrenaline surely kicked in. and I was in complete survival mode, taking off, trying to get back to my assault rifle. I was using my 1911 to lay down suppressive fire on him. I was hoping my shots would distract him and give me enough time to reach my rifle. He was not amused. I saw the abyss squat down and leap into the air, sending a gush of wind towards me. He then landed next to me, almost squashing me like a bug. I get sent tumbling across. I look up and see my rifle right next to me. I picked it up. Then in an instant, the abyss slashed my chest open with one swift attack. I flew back a couple of feet and could hear him croaking in full enjoyment of my death. I injected Kyo into my open chest wound without a second thought. Still on the ground, I picked up my rifle and unloaded bullets into the beast. After 10 seconds, all my wounds were healed up. I backed up, still shooting at him. He was tanking all the bullets, but at a cost. It was starting to wear him down. I rushed at him, still unloading bullets directed at his face. He covered his face, clearly scared to lose another eye. I then made a swift move through his legs, but used all my strength to pull out the knives from his feet. I began to furiously slash at his legs with everything I had. He fell to his knees, and I began to lunge the knives into his back, climbing all the way to his head. He threw both of his hands behind himself. I managed to dodge the first clawed fist, but the second impaled my lower half. I could hear the abyss shrieking in terror. At that point, I pulled out his signature knife and slit his throat in one quick, swift motion. He dropped like a bag of potatoes to the ground. I pulled out his claws, not feeling any of the pain. I let out a scream of pure rage while covered in blood. My own, and the abyss. I stood over him, taking in the glory of his defeat by a mere insect. My heart was pounding nearly out of my chest. I barely managed to pull out my phone and dial the emergency line for a scenario like this. Then I collapsed in utter victory. I woke up in a special government institution, lying in bed. IVs were hooked up to me everywhere, but my wounds were all gone. A man walked in, toting cargo shorts with a pink flower button-up shirt. He looked at me and said, "You looked like shit when we picked you up, but good job. Your payment will be wired to you shortly. Till next time, Jack." There are still so many questions from that night that linger in my head now and again. That was the first time I found out demons can be as intelligent as us humans. I have seen and encountered many strange beings in my time, but that day was when I really started to question if what I was doing was right. He loved me the way a hunter loves his prey. The final school year always carries a hint of nostalgia, as if every moment bears the weight of farewell. For us, however, it was more than nostalgia. It was fear, a fear that crept into our lives like an imperceptible shadow until it was too late. We were 4 inseparable friends, Natalia, Camila, Giulietta, and me, always together, always sharing everything, or so we thought. Because Giulietta, despite being the most outgoing, the most in love with love itself, harbored a secret that would freeze our blood when we discovered it. Giulietta had always had an almost obsessive fascination with love. She searched for it, longed for it, idealized it. That's why it didn't surprise us when she started dating Felipe, a guy 4 years older than her, whom she had known since childhood. They had reconnected in the town where her parents had grown up, and what began as a lifelong friendship turned into a long-distance romance. Felipe never met us in person, but he knew about us. Giulietta talked about her group of friends, our outings, our laughter, and though he lived far away, his presence was unsettlingly felt. At first, it was small things. Persistent questions about where she was, what time she got home, what she was wearing, comments that seemed innocent, but in hindsight, had a dark edge, sharp as a blade that barely grazes the skin before sinking in slowly. Giulietta never spoke much about her relationship with Felipe. We, on the other hand, shared our stories, our entanglements, our doubts. She listened with interest, smiled, gave her opinion, but she never truly told us anything deep about her own romance. It was as if she wanted to protect something, or protect herself. And then Christian appeared. Christian wasn't like the other boys at our school. He didn't try to flirt with us, didn't seek attention. He was simply our friend, one of us. Someone we could talk to about anything without fear of judgment. Over time, he became an essential part of our group, a brother, a confidant. But to Felipe, Christian was not just a friend. He was a threat. The first time Giulietta mentioned his name to Felipe, his expression changed. We didn't see it, of course, but Giulietta told us, with an uneasy look, as if trying to downplay it. She said Felipe had gotten a little upset, had asked her uncomfortable questions about Christian, had told her to stop hanging out with him so much. At first we dismissed it as a harmless bout of jealousy, but Felipe's jealousy was not normal. It was something else, something deeper, something darker. That was when we began to see Felipe's true nature. And what we saw left us frozen. It was an ordinary afternoon, leaving school with simple routine plans, buying snacks, watching movies at Giulietta's house, laughing without worries. Christian was coming with us. As we walked out the side gate of the school, Giulietta received a video call. It was Felipe. She ignored it without hesitation. For security, she shrugged. I don't want my phone stolen. Seconds later, her phone vibrated with a message. Giulietta's face changed instantly. Her lips, once curved in a smile, tightened into a rigid line. Her hands, which had been relaxed at her sides, now gripped the phone with force. Felipe is mad. Her voice was barely a whisper. We peeked at the screen. The messages appeared in rapid succession, like desperate heartbeats. Answer me. Why did you hang up? Don't ignore me. No excuses. Pick up the video call. Wait, what? Camilla frowned. But you already told him why. Giulietta didn't answer. She just sighed, with the resignation of someone who knows they have no choice, and called him back. Felipe's smile appeared on the screen. His voice was soft, syrupy, like that of a perfect lover. He told Giulietta how beautiful she looked, how much he loved her, how much he missed her, but his eyes did not smile. We were standing right in front of Giulietta, behind the phone. He couldn't see us, but something unsettled him. Who are you talking to? His tone shifted subtly. With the girls, Giulietta said, making a face. Show them to me. We looked at each other. The request was odd. Why? Giulietta sounded annoyed. Because I don't believe you. The color drained from Giulietta's face. Felipe stared at her through the screen. The pressure was undeniable. We nudged her gently so she would show us on camera, and in an awkward moment of forced introductions, we waved hello. His response was immediate and cruel. No, Giulietta. What regular-looking friends you have. You're definitely the most beautiful. You should be happy that I'll never be interested in them. You're my queen. The silence that followed was razor-sharp. Giulietta laughed nervously.
Button.
Her cheeks flushed slightly. At that moment, none of us said anything, but the years would make us understand what had really happened. That phrase, disguised as a compliment, was just another chain in the cage that Felipe had built for her. The call ended. Christian, who had been pushed away to avoid problems, returned with a look full of doubt. Giulietta will explain, I said, unwilling to be the one to unleash the storm. We walked in silence to her house. We bought snacks at a nearby store, went up to her room, and settled in to watch a movie. But before pressing play, Giulietta spoke, and what she told us, we would never forget. Giulietta told us that Felipe was very jealous, especially when they visited the town where her parents had grown up. Every time they went, he introduced her as if she were his greatest trophy, as if he had won a prize that everyone should admire. At first Giulietta felt good about it. He didn't hide her, didn't deny her, and demanded that his family respect her. But there was a condition. Under no circumstances could she approach the men in the family. Not her brother, not her cousins, not even her own father. If she did, Felipe would lose his mind. But they weren't the problem. No, the insults and accusations were always directed at her. You're easy, he would say. I bet you already slept with half the town. Giulietta didn't know what to do in those moments. She just stayed quiet and cried silently. She thought that maybe the women in the family would defend her. But no, although they comforted her, they also justified Felipe's behavior. For them it was normal, as if the entire family functioned that way. The one who finally convinced Giulietta to stay was Felipe's mother. She told her that her son had changed since being with her, that he had left bad company, that he no longer got into trouble or wasted his life, that thanks to her, Felipe was a better person. Giulietta felt she had a purpose, that she could help him, as if a teenager could fix a man older than her. So she decided to stay in the relationship. She learned to lower her gaze, to not talk too much, to not breathe too close to any other man. Only her own father could approach her, no one else. One afternoon, after school, Giulietta was in her room trying to solve a physics problem when Felipe called her. Laughing, she told him she was struggling with it more than usual. He joked, "Maybe the teacher wants you to pay more attention to him. Who knows? Maybe he likes younger girls and, well, with how beautiful you are." Giulietta smiled. Felipe seemed to be in a good mood, so she decided to play along. But then everything changed. Felipe exploded. "So you like being looked at, don't you?" He accused her of wanting to seduce the teacher, of playing with him, of seeing him as a fool. "How many more are there? How many are you with?" Giulietta, terrified, tried to explain that she had just followed the joke, but he wasn't listening anymore. From that day on, every chance he got, he interrogated her about her relationships with her teachers. Weeks later, Felipe showed up unexpectedly in the capital. Giulietta was leaving school, walking home. As she walked, she received a call from Felipe. Not wanting another interrogation, she lied. "I'm home. My grandma sent me to buy something." In reality, she was still on her way. Before entering her house, she saw her neighbor, Mr. Jaime. He was a kind man, the owner of a furniture restoration shop and a little puppy named Musita. Giulietta asked about the puppy, excited. Mr. Jaime smiled. "Let me bring her." That was when she felt an arm wrap around her throat, a cold, venomous whisper in her ear. "Very busy shopping, huh? Do you like lying to me?" Giulietta froze. She could barely breathe. Her mind tried to process what was happening, but her body didn't react. Mr. Jaime came out with Musita and stopped in his tracks. He nearly shouted at the sight. Felipe let go of his grip, but didn't release her. Instead, he grabbed her arm tightly and introduced himself with a tense smile. Giulietta barely managed to say goodbye before he dragged her to her house. "You have to feed me. The trip was long," he said, as if nothing had happened. But when they were alone in her room, Felipe exploded. He yelled, insulted her, cornered her. Giulietta felt real panic. She was trapped. She couldn't move. She couldn't escape. But the worst part was that she didn't understand that she needed to run from him. To her, it was just his personality. His mother had told her that he sometimes got angrier than he should, that it was his only flaw, right? Giulietta finished telling us with her gaze lowered, her hands trembling, and her eyes glassy, trying to hold back tears that seemed to burn her skin. We surrounded her, whispering words of comfort, assuring her that everything would be okay. But among us, the only one who reacted with true indignation was Christian. "That's not normal," he said, his brow furrowed and his voice full of restrained anger. "It's not right for that guy to treat you like that." Giulietta lifted her gaze abruptly, glaring at him, not with anger, but with desperation. "Felipe is not bad," she protested, her voice breaking. "He's just a little jealous. Sometimes he likes to play rough jokes, but he doesn't mean any harm. I love him." Christian clenched his fists, his breathing heavy, and for a moment it looked like he was about to shout. He ran his hands through his hair, pulling it in frustration. "You don't understand, Giulietta," he murmured, his tone so serious that even we felt a chill run through the room. "You're trapped in that relationship, and you don't even realize it." I watched the scene in silence, feeling a weight in my chest. I didn't know much about love. I had never had a boyfriend, but something about all of this made me feel uneasy, as if we were standing at the edge of an abyss and Giulietta was clinging to the ledge with her fingernails, refusing to see the fall waiting for her. Christian, seeing that his words fell into an echoing void, sighed in exasperation. His gaze shifted from Giulietta to us, as if searching for support, but none of us had the courage to confront Giulietta at that moment. Finally, he took a deep breath and declared, "I'm not going to stick around and watch that guy completely destroy you." And he left. Something in me reacted, and I followed him to the door, catching up before he disappeared into the night. I stood in front of him, searching for the right words, but he just looked at me with immense exhaustion in his eyes. "Don't leave her alone," he told me, with a seriousness that chilled my blood. "Support her, but don't make her believe that love endures everything. Don't justify this, because this isn't love." His words remained in my mind, like a persistent echo. After that night, Christian began to distance himself. He didn't ignore us, but there was something in his attitude that showed his patience had run out, especially with Giulietta. She, for her part, stopped mentioning Felipe, perhaps because she still wanted Christian's friendship. It seemed like everything was calming down. But we were wrong. One night, the WhatsApp group lit up with a message from Giulietta. Felipe wants to kill himself. The air seemed to thicken immediately. We all fell silent, paralyzed, horror creeping through our veins. We started bombarding her with questions, begging her to explain what had happened. She answered us with a voice message, her breathing ragged. She told us that her grandmother had overheard her argument with Christian, and that for the first time, someone in her family had told her what we and Christian had been trying to say. She needed to stay away from Felipe. Her grandmother begged her to leave him before it was too late. At first, Giulietta refused, but something inside her started to give in. Maybe, deep down, she already knew. She distanced herself from Felipe little by little, ignoring his calls, responding less and less. But he wouldn't accept it. He clung to her like a castaway to a piece of driftwood in the middle of the ocean. He constantly questioned her, blamed her for everything, told her that no one else would accept her, that she was a fool for wasting the chance to be with him. He humiliated her, insulted her, made her cry countless times, but she resisted, until one night he called, and she answered. Felipe's voice was calm, melancholic. He talked about his problems at home, how unhappy he was, how much he needed her. He swore he would change, that everything would be different if she gave him another chance. Giulietta felt her heart tighten. She hesitated, but she wanted to be sure that he would really change. She told him everything that had hurt her, his jealousy, his mistreatment, the way he made her feel small. Felipe let out a bitter, lifeless laugh. I'm a mess, he whispered. An idiot. A monster. All I do is hurt people. I should just disappear. Giulietta felt a lump in her throat. Don't say that. The world would be better without me, he said, with a calmness that sent chills down her spine. I can't live without you, Giulietta. I'm nothing without you. I'm at the town's lookout. The night is cold, but the view is beautiful. Giulietta stopped breathing. I love you, Felipe whispered. Forgive me. And he hung up. Giulietta felt the ground open beneath her feet. She trembled, tears falling uncontrollably. Desperate, she called Felipe's mother, sobbing, pleading for help. But the woman's response was a knife straight to her heart. This is your fault. If anything happens to my son, it'll be because of you. And she hung up. Not knowing what else to do, Giulietta wrote to us. The silence that followed her audio was dense, heavy. We stared at each other through the screen. Though we couldn't really see one another, we felt like statues, trapped in a moment that didn't seem real. Christian was the first to break the silence. Don't do anything, he said firmly. Don't respond. Don't look for him. This is manipulation. He will call you again. But Giulietta was shattered, consumed by guilt, anguish, terror. She felt like the worst person in the world. She felt like she had ruined Felipe's life. What should I do? She asked in a barely audible voice. And the answer was not simple. Giulietta was desperate. She called Felipe over and over, his mother. No one answered. The silence became a monster that devoured our sense of calm. It was as if the world had stopped in a dark crevice where the worst was about to reveal itself. We, her friends, felt the sticky anxiety clinging to our skin, the helplessness of being on the other end of the phone, unable to do anything. And then, in the early morning, the notification hit us like a gunshot to the head. Felipe was found. He had been unconscious, abandoned at the town's lookout. A neighbor had found him, a limp, intoxicated body that looked more like a corpse than a person. Giulietta told us about it with a shattered voice, sobbing, crushed by her own cries. She blamed herself. She was drowning in an ocean of guilt that Felipe himself had built around her, with every shout, every threat disguised as a plea, every hug that was more of a noose than a comfort. And then she said the words that froze our blood. I have to go see him. I have to apologize. I expected Christian to explode, to yell, to shake her with words full of reason, but his silence was a sharp knife that left us exposed. It was Natalia who spoke. Her voice was firm, restrained, but it carried the weight of a truth that could no longer be ignored. Don't do this, Giulietta. Don't you see? Don't you see what he's doing? He's manipulating you. He's pulling you into his cage. And if you go in this time, you won't come out." Giulietta didn't answer. She couldn't, because deep down, she already knew. Her body knew. Her instincts screamed at her to run. But love, that damn trap, kept her tied. That night, she didn't write again. But silence wasn't peace. The next day, Giulietta gathered us in the school's green area, away from the others, her skin dull and dark circles like shadows under her eyes. She wasn't the same Giulietta. Something had changed. She looked at us, swallowed hard, and told us what she had discovered. She had spent the night without sleeping, searching through every corner of Felipe's social media. She remembered the name of an ex-girlfriend, Samantha, a ghost mentioned by Felipe's mother in a moment of carelessness, under her son's warning gaze. Giulietta searched, dug, found her, and messaged her at around 4 in the morning. Of course, Samantha didn't respond immediately, but that morning, Giulietta saw the notification, a message that would change everything. "Stay away from him before it's too late." Giulietta trembled. So did we. Samantha told her the truth. Felipe's real face, that he didn't have female friends, only prey he sought to trap, that he wasn't capable of being faithful or of loving without possessing, that his love was a prison, and that when she tried to escape, he marked her with his clenched fists. I didn't react in time. He convinced me it was my fault. He promised he would change, but he never did. Giulietta read every word with a stomach full of thorns. She didn't want to believe it. What if she's lying? What if Samantha still has feelings for him and just wants to keep me away? But then the fear came. That visceral feeling that everything fit together too well. That she too had felt that control. That she too had seen those terrifying mood swings. That suffocating love. Those pleas that sounded more like threats. Felipe never left me alone. Even now he keeps looking for me. He calls me. He sends me messages from unknown numbers. He asks my family about me. He says he loves me, that I shouldn't leave him alone. He can't stand it. He can't stand being left. He can't stand losing. Giulietta placed her phone on the table as if it burned her fingers. We were in shock. Felipe wasn't just a toxic boyfriend. Felipe was a predator. "Tell me you understand what this means," I whispered, my throat tight with fear. Giulietta blinked, swallowed hard, and broke into tears. "I love him, but I'm also afraid of him. I want to keep him away, but I don't know how to get out of this." Terror hit us like a wave. It was like watching her sink into quicksand, trapped between love and horror. "Don't talk to him again. If you feel like you're going to, call us instead. We'll keep you company. We'll stay with you. We'll do whatever it takes." I pleaded. I begged. She nodded, but the fear never left her eyes. Days passed. Felipe didn't reach out. Giulietta avoided looking at her phone. She was doing it. But peace was an illusion. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't sleep. There was something in the air, something thick, something pressing against my chest. And then I knew Felipe hadn't left. Felipe wasn't going to let her go. Felipe was still there, lurking, and my body knew it, but I didn't listen. None of us could have imagined what would happen next. It wasn't a girl. In my teenage years, my best friends were Giulietta, Camila, Natalia, and me. We were inseparable, not only at school but also outside of it. We spent time together, studied in groups, and above all gathered at Giulietta's house, the most convenient meeting point for all of us. Giulietta lived with her mother, her sister, her niece, and her grandmother in a 3-story house. They occupied the second floor, while the first was rented out, and the third served as a terrace. One morning, during recess, Giulietta called us urgently. Her face reflected concern, and something else. Fear. We sat in a circle on the school's green area, and she began speaking to us in a low voice, as if afraid someone else might hear her. "For several nights, something strange has been happening to me." We looked at each other, expectant. Giulietta told us that lately, she hadn't been able to sleep. She lay awake in her room, tossing and turning, unable to rest. One of those nights, thirst forced her to leave her room and go to the dining room, where the family kept a small refrigerator with cold drinks. The house was completely silent. She didn't want to make noise and wake her mother or grandmother, so she walked carefully. She opened the fridge, took out her water bottle, and began to drink, standing right in front of the appliance. Then, she saw it. From the corner of her eye, in the dimly lit living room, something caught her attention. Under the faint glow of the streetlights filtering through the window, she distinguished a white, motionless figure. She slowly turned her head, and there it was. A few meters away, in the middle of the living room, stood a little girl. She was small, no more than a meter tall. She wore light-colored pajamas, white with pink details. Her long hair was tied in a messy braid, with strands stuck to her forehead, as if she had been sweating. Giulietta froze. Her gaze met the girl's for a few seconds, but that was enough. A primal fear took hold of her, the deep terror of prey when facing its predator. Without thinking, she dropped the bottle, letting the water spill onto the floor, and ran back to her room. She slammed the door shut and hid under the blankets, as if they could shield her from what she had just seen. She waited. Nothing. No one in her house woke up from the noise. Not her mother, not her grandmother, not her sister. Everything remained in absolute silence. The next morning, she tried to convince herself that maybe her mind had played a trick on her, that her niece, the only child in the house, had gotten up at night, and she had simply mistaken her for something else. But the doubt gnawed at her. When everyone was awake, Giulietta asked her sister about her niece's white and pink pajamas. What pajamas? Her sister frowned. She pulled from the closet the only pajamas in those colors her daughter owned. They weren't the same. The pajamas of the girl Giulietta had seen in the living room were a short-sleeved nightgown with pink details, but her niece's were completely different. A long-sleeved sweatshirt and pants set, in bright pink with white edges and a bear design in the center. A chill ran down Giulietta's spine. It couldn't have been her niece. So what the hell had she seen that night? We fell silent. A shiver ran through us. When Giulietta finished her story, Natalia, wide-eyed and with trembling hands, scolded her for not telling her family sooner. Camila, with a serious expression, asked if anything else had happened recently. Giulietta, after a moment of hesitation, nodded. Since that night, she whispered, I haven't gone into the living room after dark. Not alone, not with anyone. But there was one time, 2 nights ago. She paused. Her breathing was heavier. She looked at each of us with the expression of someone who doesn't want to remember, but can't help it. One night, she continued, I couldn't hold it anymore. My bladder forced me to leave my room to go to the bathroom. She took a longer pause this time, as if reliving the moment. The bathroom is right next to the living room, and there's a small window that connects the hallway to the living room. From there you can see everything. We shuddered. The mere idea of passing through that area seemed terrifying, but Giulietta had no other choice. I walked in complete silence, she continued, with my bedroom light on, leaving the door open, in case I had to run back. I closed my eyes almost completely. I didn't want to see. I didn't want to feel. I didn't want to know. She paused. Her throat moved as she swallowed. I entered the bathroom, and I made it. I was safe. But the worst was yet to come. When I finished, as I washed my hands, my mind was already on the way out, on the window. I didn't want to look. I shouldn't look. She took our hands. Her skin was cold. I took a step toward the door, and I heard it. Her voice cracked. It was a subtle sound, but clear, like when someone lightly scrapes a glass with their nails, like an insistent tapping, sharp. We shivered. I don't know when I did it, but I looked. Giulietta lowered her head into her hands. She was there. The image she described made us hold our breath. The girl had her face and hands pressed against the glass. Her pale skin was flattened against it. There was no distance between them. Her eyes were so close to the glass that they looked viscous. And her fingers, Giulietta murmured, her fingers drummed against the window over and over again. There was a long silence. She looked at us with an indescribable expression. The worst part was that I swear she smiled at me. Her voice trembled. I don't know how I got to my room, but when I shut the door, when I hid under the covers, that smile was in my mind. She looked at us again, and this time, her expression was different. I felt mocked, she whispered, as if I had fallen into a trap. as if that thing knew something I didn't. A knot of tension formed between us. By then, it wasn't just Natalia who was utterly terrified. Even Camilla, the bravest of us all, had lost her confident demeanor. Her look of disbelief spoke for itself. I, for my part, was caught in a crossroads between fear and fascination. I couldn't say I wasn't scared, but the fact that I wasn't experiencing it firsthand allowed me to maintain a fragile composure. Still, what unsettled me most wasn't the story itself, but Juliet's endurance. How had she managed to bear all of this without telling her family? How could she continue living in that house with that presence lurking in the shadows? Recess ended, and we returned to class, our minds still trapped in what we had just heard. We had 4 long hours before we could go home, but the sense of unease never left us. Every now and then, our eyes met, sharing a silence filled with unanswered questions. Days passed, and in our project methodology class, we were assigned the task of developing the theoretical framework for our graduation research. As usual, we agreed to meet at Julieta's house to work on it that afternoon. After school, we decided to make a quick stop to buy some snacks. Between laughs, we picked ice cream and cookies, unconsciously trying to convince ourselves that it would be just another ordinary afternoon. When we arrived at Julieta's house, her grandmother greeted us with the same warmth as always. She had known us for years, and in a way she was a grandmother to all of us. She welcomed us tenderly and offered us lunch, an offer we gladly accepted. We moved to the dining table, chatting about trivial things. That's when I noticed it. Julieta had a distant look, lost in time and space, fixed on a point beyond the dining room. Her eyes were locked on the living room, on the very spot where she had seen the girl. In that instant, I understood what was going through her mind. A sharp pang of anxiety shot through me, and almost without thinking, I reached out and took her hand. I squeezed it gently, a silent attempt to offer support. Julieta blinked and turned her face toward me. Her expression was a mixture of gratitude and distress, as if simply being there was an unbearable weight. I understood. Of course, I understood. It was at that moment that a chill ran down my spine. Suddenly, I became aware of where we were, of the walls surrounding us, of the light streaming through the windows, of the door leading to the living room, of Julieta's story, and the presence that inhabited that house. I swallowed hard and turned my gaze back to my plate, trying to push away the dark thoughts creeping into my mind. I just hoped nothing bad would happen that day. We finished lunch, washed our dishes and utensils, and headed to Julieta's room. There, as always, we settled around her desk, ready to focus on our research. However, the feeling of unease lingered. That was when Julieta's grandmother knocked on the door and peeked in to tell us she was going to pick up Julieta's niece from school and would be back soon. We said goodbye normally, but as soon as her figure disappeared through the front door, the awareness of our solitude settled over us like a heavy shadow. The house was empty. There was no one else. We exchanged glances, and it was Camilla who broke the silence with a sensible warning. We needed to focus. We tried, and for a while it worked. More than half an hour of peace passed before something shattered that fragile balance. A faint tapping, weak but clear, coming from the bedroom window. We turned our heads in unison toward the sound, and then looked at Julieta. She frowned, and in a firm voice, asked Camila to accompany her. Camila, without hesitation, got up and pulled the curtain aside. Nothing. There was nothing there, but the silence that followed was no relief. Suddenly, louder, more insistent knocks, this time from the adjacent wall. "Who sleeps there?" I asked. Julieta looked at me with a grim expression. "No one. That room is empty. My dad only uses it when he visits, but that hardly ever happens." Possibilities swirled in my mind. Had someone broken in? Was Julieta's niece playing a prank? But something didn't add up. Camila grew restless and decided to go check. Natalia begged her not to, but she didn't hesitate. She stepped out and left the door slightly ajar. The seconds stretched endlessly until she returned, looking confused. "There's no one," she said. "I checked the other room, and it's empty." "So is Julieta's niece's room." "No one." As she spoke, Julieta noticed something behind her. The door leading to the living room, which had been closed before, was now slightly open. In the gap, a shadow. It had no defined shape, but it was two colors, black and white. Julieta pulled out her phone, switched to video mode, and zoomed in. We huddled behind her, watching the screen intently. And then, the shadow moved. Just a slight shift, but enough to make the door move with it. Natalia let out a strangled gasp. And with that, panic erupted. We all screamed in unison, except for Camila, who ran to the bedroom door and slammed it shut. When she turned to face us, she found us all huddled together on Julieta's bed. "Calm down," she ordered firmly. But before she could say anything else, the attack resumed. Knocks, this time on both the window and the adjacent walls simultaneously. It could no longer be a prank. It was impossible for someone to be in two places at once. It was impossible, at least for a human being. Natalia broke into sobs. "I want to get out of here." I glanced at my phone. It was 5 in the afternoon. I had to leave too, but the thought of stepping out of that room paralyzed me. We decided to stop working and turn on the TV for distraction. No one spoke. No one moved. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. A knock at the door made us jump, but this time it was Julieta's grandmother. She peeked in with a warm smile. "I'm back, girls. I brought fresh fruit for you." Behind her, Julieta's niece clung timidly to her skirt. She greeted us sweetly and ran into Julieta's arms. "Did you just get here?" Julieta asked. "Yes," the little girl replied. "Grandma bought me ice cream on the way, so we took a little longer." We looked at each other, our hearts pounding in our throats. There had been no one in the house, no one, but something had been with us the whole time. With Julia's family home, the air in the room felt lighter, but the tension didn't fully dissipate. Julieta, feeling a renewed sense of security, finally stepped out of the room. Natalia, however, was still trembling. Her fear was palpable, and her tear-filled eyes reflected a primal urgency. She wanted to run. "I'm not staying here any longer," she whispered shakily, staring at the door as if expecting something to appear at any moment. Camila and I tried to calm her down. We told her it would be rude to leave abruptly, especially when Julieta's grandmother had taken the trouble to prepare something for us. But Natalia insisted. She clung to the sleeve of my sweater like a terrified child, and the trembling in her hand sent shivers down my spine. Eventually, we convinced her to stay, at least until we finished our snack. The grandmother returned with plates of fresh fruit and juice. The sound of utensils scraping against the dishes broke the uneasy silence, but it wasn't enough to ease our thoughts. Everything that had happened was still imprinted in our minds with terrifying clarity. Each bite felt heavy, as if our throats refused to swallow. I was the first to speak. "Julieta, you have to tell them what's happening. You can keep this to yourself." She immediately shook her head, pressing her lips together. "I don't want to scare my mom or my grandma," she murmured, staring at her plate. Something inside me ignited. "And what if it happens again tonight?" I said, not sugarcoating my words. "Well, go home and sleep soundly, but you'll stay here, alone with that. Do you really want to keep ignoring it?" Julieta glared at me, but her eyes welled up with tears. She knew I was right. Her stubbornness was only condemning her to face whatever lurked in that house alone. Finally, she sighed, and in a trembling voice whispered, "Okay, tonight, when my mom gets home, I'll tell them everything." We finished eating in heavy silence, as if the house itself was listening to every word. We washed the dishes and said goodbye with tense smiles. Before leaving, we insisted, "If anything happens, anything at all, call us." She nodded with a tired smile, but her eyes reflected something deeper: fear, resignation. We walked away from the house, feeling like we were leaving something behind. The last thing we saw of Julieta was her silhouette in the doorway, watching us as we left, and then the door closed. Behind us, the house loomed, silent and shadowy, like a patient predator. That night, when I got home, the darkness in my room felt thicker than usual. I locked my door, as if that could keep out the feeling that something, from some unseen corner, was watching me. I told everything to my mother and my aunt. They, being deeply religious, crossed themselves several times as they listened, their faces reflecting a mixture of disbelief and fear. In my mind, the doubt lingered. Should I show them the video Julieta had managed to record in her house? The video of that thing. I took a moment alone to review it. Julieta had sent it to our WhatsApp group. But until that moment, I hadn't had the courage to examine it closely. I turned up the screen brightness, but the image remained dark, distorted. A shiver ran down my spine. I didn't want to watch it, but I couldn't look away either. So, I used an app to adjust the contrast and saturation. I tweaked the colors, the shadow levels, and suddenly, there it was. I dropped the phone as if it had burned my fingers. The screen had revealed what was once hidden in the darkness. A gray face with features that might have seemed feminine, but were human, not entirely. The withered skin, deeply wrinkled on the forehead and around the eyes of a bluish-gray hue that seemed to sink into the very darkness. And that smile, it was the same one Giulietta had seen that night. The smile that had paralyzed her, the one that stretched too far, too wide, as if that thing's lips were about to tear apart. It was not a child. It was not human. A disguise, a crude attempt to appear harmless, but in its imperfection, it revealed its true nature. Trembling, I sent the modified video to the group. Look closely, tell me you see it. The blue ticks appeared almost immediately. Messages from Natalia and Camila flooded the conversation. What the hell is that? Oh my God, that can't be real. But Giulietta didn't reply, not that night, nor in the days that followed. She wasn't online, or maybe she had decided to distance herself from all of this, as if ignoring it would make it disappear. I took my phone and went to my mother. First, I showed her the original video, the one Giulietta had recorded without modifications. She barely watched a few seconds before looking away, her expression twisting into a grimace of horror. "Delete that, right now," she demanded with a trembling voice. "That could bring bad things into this house. You shouldn't have seen it, or kept it." Without arguing, I deleted it in front of her, but a thought pulsed in my mind. The modified video, I hadn't shown that one yet. That night, I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, she appeared again, her face twisted in my mind, her smile stretching wider and wider, turning into a grotesque grimace, an aberration of the human form. I would jolt awake, gasping, feeling the cold sweat clinging to my skin. I lay still, staring at the ceiling for hours, my phone beside me, the temptation to watch the video growing inside me like poison. My mother was right. I shouldn't keep this up. On the third night, I deleted it. I can say if I slept better after that, but at least I no longer had the excuse to open my gallery and relive it. The video was gone, lost in space and time, but not from my memory. 11 years have passed since that night, in 26 now, and I still remember it with terrifying clarity, especially because I know what happened next, in Giulietta's house. My best friend just got brutally murdered. My phone began buzzing. The incoming video call was from Frankie's burner phone. My heart was palpitating rapidly, and a painful pit swelled up in my belly. The video feed lit up with a sinister ambiance as I answered, revealing a chilling scene. The screen was filled with hooded figures in an otherwise empty-looking room. In middle of said room, a figure was on its knees, with their hands tied behind their back. The room was dimly lit and dank. The surroundings appeared to be the basement of a warehouse or factory. Large water pipes scaled the walls from the ceiling to the floor. There was a low but constant hum of what I assumed to be machinery of some sort. One of the masked figures stepped forward, his gloved hands reaching to slowly remove the shroud of the kneeling person, and revealed a terrified face. With a sudden and heart-wrenching gesture, Frankie's identity was revealed, and I could see the fear etched into his eyes. Just then, Mr. Voss, the cold and ruthless figure, snatched Frankie's phone and glared back at me with contempt. He wasted no time taunting me, his voice laced with sadistic pleasure. "We caught your rat where he doesn't belong. How many of us have you executed? Dozens more? It's my turn, and I'm going to show you exactly what it feels like to lose your best friend." Frankie's vulnerability mirrored that of the rusting pipes and the crumbling shambles of the room around him. Mr. Voss focused the phone back on Frankie, before ordering one of his masked henchmen to deliver a brutal punch to Frankie's face. His cruel laugh then filled the room, chilling me to the core. Through the laughing, damn, that looked like it hurt, Malachi finished. Mr. Voss then asked the ominous question. If Frankie had any last words, with unyielding determination. Frankie raised his chin in defiance, and locked eyes with me, even through the phone's screen. I could feel his unwavering resolve. His voice echoed through the sparse room and carried a message of strength. "Phoenix, keep the mission alive. He who fears death is in denial," he proclaimed. "How noble, stupid, but noble," Malachi replied, before ordering his masked henchman to slowly withdraw something from just out of the camera's frame. It was revealed to be a sawed-off shotgun. I felt helpless and panic surged through me, but I couldn't look away. In an agonizingly slow moment, the shotgun was aimed directly at Frankie's head. I didn't even get a chance to bargain with them, and before I could close my eyes, there was a deafening blast that erupted from the screen. The masked guy squeezed the trigger and Frankie's head exploded like a watermelon. The gory sounds of the remnants that used to be Frankie's skull violently splattered to the ground. It was a tidal wave of blood, bone and brain matter that scattered across the dirty concrete floor. Malachi, his sinister face filled with malevolence, turned the phone back to himself. A cruel smile played on his lips as he issued a final warning. "This is just a small taste of what we will do to you, and everyone you love, if you don't back off and stay out of our business. You have no idea what you're fucking with." With a sinister chuckle, Malachi ended the call, leaving me with the haunting aftermath of Frankie's gruesome demise. The lifeless phone slipped from my fingertips and dropped to the ground at my feet. My eyes instantly welled up and tears cascaded down my cheeks. I couldn't get that image out of my head, and how my oldest, greatest friend was now gone in the blink of an eye. I had to break it to Jennifer. Retelling what happened made me lose it all over again. Through my sniffling and tears, I went over the gruesome moment with as little details as possible. I had to protect her good memories of Frankie. I then broke the news to Veronica, and she was the only one who kept a brave face. She's always been so strong, and she cared for me while I grieved. As if watching everything unfold wasn't horrifying enough, a week later I received an encrypted video file of Malachi directing his henchmen to dispose of Frankie's body. The mountain of a man lifted Frankie's body with relative ease and pushed it forcefully into a wood chipper. The scene surrounding them was a densely thick forest. The serene chirping of birds quickly became drowned out when Malachi flipped the switch and the machine whirred to life. The bloody remains spurted out the other side and into one of those lawn clipping collection bags. Mr. Voss next turned the wood chipper off, and its roar immediately died. The giant brute then grabbed up the lawn bag and carried it over to an industrial-sized drum. The image then focused down into the barrel, revealing a steaming, cloudy liquid. The camera panned down a little lower to reveal the contents of the barrel: hydrofluoric acid. The unnamed bodyguard then poured the squelching pile of gore into the barrel. The shredded flesh sizzled and hissed as it hit the acid. Within seconds, every proof of Frankie's existence was completely dissolved into the caustic liquid. Malachi stared directly into the camera's lens and smirked. "Just taking out the trash," he finished with a wink. "This is the worst thing I've ever witnessed, but if there's any interest, I might provide an update once things cool off." The waiting room. The waiting room was unnervingly still, a sterile chamber where even the slightest hint of warmth seemed to vanish. I sat on a stiff plastic chair, my eyes fixed on the blank television mounted on the wall, as the ceaseless hum of fluorescent lights underscored my isolation. The pervasive scent of antiseptic clung to the air, with each inhalation serving as a reminder of the clinical precision that had come to define this place. Above me, an old clock hung on the wall, a relic with ornate hands that defied logic. Its ticking was irregular, sometimes skipping a beat or even running backward for a split second, as if time itself were being tampered with. I found its behavior oddly hypnotic, a silent metronome to the growing dissonance around me. My thumb idly traced the familiar grooves of the old silver bracelet on my wrist, my wife's parting gift, once joked about as a way to remind me, "Just remember, you belong to me." Now, its cool metal served as a bittersweet tether to a life I feared was slipping away. I was frozen there, watching the clock tick by, each irregular tick amplifying the pounding of my heart as an unsettling silence enveloped me. I could still hear that nurse's calm voice from earlier.
"Don't worry, Mr. Baker.
It only moves when you move." But as I stared at the operating room door, something felt seriously off. The usual hum of chatter was gone. I looked around and realized the nurse and everyone else had just vanished. The whole hospital felt empty, like I was the only soul left. I leaned forward and mumbled, "Who's there?" But my words were swallowed by a creeping silence, the erratic flicker of lights, and a strange pressure building in my head. That's when I noticed it, a rippling distortion at the edge of my vision, as if reality itself were torn open. There, lounging in the periphery, was a creature that defied explanation, an interdimensional presence whose form shimmered between hues and shadows, shifting in a way that made it seem neither entirely here nor there. Its unblinking gaze locked onto me, silent and menacing, daring me to make a move. For a long, heart-stopping moment, I stood paralyzed, caught in that creature's overwhelming stare. It moved slowly at first, almost languidly, its form undulating with an otherworldly fluidity, as if it were suspended between dimensions. Every second of that standoff made me feel as though my very soul were being measured against some ancient, incomprehensible standard. I knew instinctively that any movement might provoke it. A silent challenge laid out before me. Its eyes, cold and unyielding, seemed to command stillness, forcing me into an agonizing stalemate. Remain frozen and face an eternal confrontation, or risk moving and unleash its wrath. The tension became unbearable. My heart hammered in my ears, and driven by a desperate need to escape, I forced myself to move. With trembling legs, I inched toward an open door down a dim corridor, each step a gamble against the creature's silent threat. Behind me, the clock's hands jerked unpredictably, a visual echo of my every faltering step. In that instant, the interdimensional being sprang into action. Its form shifted abruptly, darting after me with a speed that defied logic, a predatory sprint that blurred the boundaries of space and time. I caught only the eerie sound of its movement, as if it were tearing through the very fabric of reality. No longer a distant menace, it was right on my heels, its intense gaze burning into my back. I raced down those narrow halls, my footsteps echoing my mounting terror. Then, in a narrow stretch of corridor, as I desperately tried to outpace it, I tripped. In that split second, I felt its cold, otherworldly touch, a searing slash of pain along my forearm. The wound burned through my nerves with such intensity that my vision narrowed and the agony became unbearable. My legs buckled under the onslaught, and the overwhelming pain sent me spiraling into darkness. When I came to, harsh fluorescent lights stabbed at my eyes. I was in a hospital bed, machines beeping in a sterile room that felt all too convincing. My thoughts raced, trying to stitch together the fragmented chaos of the chase, the excruciating pain of the wound, and that oppressive, silent corridor. Above the bed, the same erratic clock now loomed, its maddening dance of contorted hands, a constant reminder that time was no longer trustworthy. A gentle knock on the door pulled me from my disoriented reverie. A nurse entered, her smile crisp and unnervingly cheerful under the glare of the lights. Without missing a beat, she announced in a calm, measured tone, "Mr. Baker, the surgery went well." There was an unsettling precision in her words, as if they were part of a well-rehearsed script. As she adjusted the settings on the monitor with meticulous efficiency, she added, "Your wife will be here soon." Her voice, too serene for the chaos I had just experienced, sent a shiver down my spine. The promise of her arrival, though meant to be reassuring, only deepened the uncanny dissonance that permeated every corner of my mind. The door creaked open, and there she stood. Yet as she stepped into the room, every movement felt unnaturally delayed, as if invisible strings were pulling her along. Then her voice, soft and insistent, cut through the sterile silence. "Honey, you don't have to be scared. This is the real deal. You remember everything, right? The hospital, the doctors, our love." My mind reeled, torn between the haunting memories of that waiting room and the gentle cadence of her words. I don't get it," I stammered, voice trembling. I saw things, felt something chasing me. That waiting room, it felt all too real. She moved closer, her hand reaching out as if to soothe my frayed nerves. They were just illusions. Love, your mind's way of shielding you from some hard truths. You're safe here. This is where you belong. Her words were hypnotic, a lullaby promising solace after the chaos. For a moment, the seductive pull of her reassurance nearly overwhelmed me. But beneath the surface, a stubborn doubt stirred. "No, something's off. I can feel it. I don't know if I can trust you." In that instant, her eyes flickered. A brief, almost imperceptible glint that sent a chill racing down my spine. She stepped even closer, her smile widening in a manner that felt both inviting and menacing. "You're overthinking it, love. Let me help you. Just let go of your fears and accept this." The closer she came, the more I sensed an undercurrent of menace, a subtle distortion in her features, a lag in her movements that defied the natural flow of life. Instinct roared within me, urging escape. With a surge of adrenaline, I shoved her back. The act felt like a betrayal even as it snapped me back to reality. In that charged moment, the air shattered with a sudden bone-chilling crack. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered violently, casting erratic shadows that stretched like grasping fingers. As I staggered backward, my heart pounded in my ears, and from the far corner of the room, a dark, shifting presence emerged, a being whose form wavered between this world and some other far more sinister plane. Its eyes, voids of ancient malice, fixed upon me as it spoke in a voice that was both a whisper and a roar. "You never left the waiting room." The walls convulsed as the sterile confines dissolved into a nightmare of swirling shadows and fractured time. I stood frozen, caught between the remnants of a reality I once knew and a terror that refused to relent. In that final, shattering moment, as the boundaries of my world crumbled into darkness, I realized that I had been waiting for myself in that waiting room all along, even before the chase and the chaos began, trapped in an endless cycle. Here I am, once again sitting in that same cold waiting room. In performing an autopsy on a pregnant woman, and things keep getting stranger. I knew her. In all my years of work, I've developed a strange relationship with death. I see it as something purely physical. Whilst the body in front of me is just an organism who stopped living. That's all that it is. And yet it took me by surprise to have her on my table. I'd seen her around the hospital before, mice excited, glowing, talking about what her life would look from now on. She was a bit distracted sometimes, saying that great things were coming, but I didn't expect her to die right before giving birth. She was found drowned in her own home, with writings on her wrists and on the back of her neck, and she'd been laying in her bathtub for days before her neighbor found her. She had no husband, no relatives. They expected me to rule it as a suicide mind. I didn't believe that, since it made no sense. Why would she kill herself right before giving birth? Right before becoming a mother, a thing she'd been so excited about. I'd been called in the middle of the night to work on her mitos. They said her body was already in a pretty fragile state, and I needed to be precise and fast before they could wrap this tragedy up. I won't weight you down with all the gory details. I'll just go over the process really fast, so that you'll get an idea of what I do. First came some of the paperwork and observations, along with the external examination and photographs. I didn't notice anything besides the obvious signs of drowning and damage done by the 3 days spent in the bathtub. Although, if I'm being honest, but that might have been just me, I thought that the skin surrounding the writing wrist's neck was lighter than the rest and harder. Next came the internal examination. I'd been plagued by a wave of sadness, not wanting to move on with the procedure, but I tensed up and kept on working. Again, the usual signs of drowning. I froze with the instruments in hand. I was the only one in the morgue, or at least the only one alive, and it might have been the lack of sleep or the general eerie atmosphere that was making me feel unsure of what I was seeing. There was no earthly way she could have made those carvings on her ribs, tiny carvings of the same symbols. My throat was dry, which made me feel like I was choking on air, and suddenly the collar of my scrub felt too tight for me. It wasn't my imagination. Her ribs were covered in these carvings. Could it be some bone-eating bacteria? I knew it was pointless to even ask that question. Because I knew it wasn't, I took out my phone to take a close-up of the ribs. I know that wasn't too professional, but I had no choice. The moment I took the picture, something clattered in the distance. I looked up to the door to the hallway. No one should be here. I took a sharp breath and carefully put my gloves back on, feeling the blood slowly drain from my face as I worked my way down to her amniotic sac. I was expecting to see something that would make my skin crawl, and I knew that no matter how hard I braced myself, it would still hit me hard. When I opened it, it was empty. There were no signs of a fetus. It was as if it had just disappeared, leaving her placenta and the umbilical cord behind, intact. There was no baby there. I stepped back from her and took off my gloves. I rubbed my eyes. That had to be impossible. Her tummy had been perfectly round, and I'm pretty sure there would have been signs if she'd given birth before or after dying. It was inhumane, unnatural, everything indicating a pregnancy existed, all except for the baby. I carefully closed her up, trying not to think about the missing baby and the symbols, then filled the report. I wrote suicide on it. I wasn't 100% sure of that. I didn't need to be. They'd been clear with the instructions. Just get it done. Fast. I creaked the door open and peered into the hallway. The clattering had come from the supply room, and I hadn't heard the door open or close, so what had done it was still there. I approached it slowly, holding my breath, as if I were afraid to make a sound. I placed my hand on the doorknob and twisted. Click. It was locked, on the inside. I knocked. "Hey," I whispered, "is anyone there?" What followed was an unusual sound, something like someone sucking the air through their teeth. I looked back to the hallway, ending with the morgue. The door was swinging open. I couldn't remember if I'd closed it or not, and I didn't want to. I decided my job was finished there. I closed up and got into my car, then drove home in silence. I live alone, so me coming home at 3 a.m. would not disturb anyone. After doing my night routine and going to bed, I found myself twisting and turning, strange dreams pressing onto me, like the ones you have when you have a fever. I thought I heard a cry at one point, until I realized it had been my own. I opened my eyes after what seemed like minutes, to discover it was a little over 6 a.m. In the soft glow of the morning, my window had fogged up a bit, and I couldn't help but stare, perplexed, at the fresh print of a child's hand on the inside of the glass. There's just something about the darkness that deepens the horror of seeing a fresh print of a child's hand on your window. During the day, it is disturbing. During the night, it makes your stomach turn. Especially when you live alone. Especially after having done an autopsy on a pregnant woman whose baby was never found. Especially when the print is on the inside of the glass. I'd seen the print that morning, yet refused to acknowledge it until late at night. I figured I was just tired, or disturbed by the previous events, and my mind was playing tricks on me. However, after getting out of the shower and seeing the fogged-up mirror, I gently pressed my hand on it and stared at the print, then compared it to the one in my bedroom. It was a child's hand. Did it be related to the baby I couldn't find? I know that seemed ridiculous, and yet a lot of ridiculous things had happened in the past 24 hours. One thing was certain. I was not sleeping that night. I remembered the picture I'd taken of the symbols carved on her ribs, and pulled my phone out. I opened the photo, and there they were. The bone displayed a continuous line of writing, some letters repeating, symbols so intricate they resembled hieroglyphs. The details were so tiny that it seemed impossible for anyone to carve them there. I debated using Google reverse image search to match the symbols, since I couldn't identify their language or purpose. However, a more rational approach made me realize that I can just upload a picture with the insides of a woman onto Google's servers. I decided to trace them on paper and reverse image search that picture. I sat at my kitchen table and tensed up as I copied, as accurately as I could, the strange writing. I had a sense it had something to do with some cult or ritual, but I still wanted to know what I was dealing with. The first symbol resembled an open hand, missing its ring finger. I did my best to draw it, then moved to some sort of swirls around a triangle. By then, I'd only done 2 out of the dozens of symbols, and my hand felt numb. My back was starting to hurt from crouching at the table. I was compelled to finish, so that I could just move on and break the awful silence that had found its rest in my apartment. From my position, I could still see the child's handprint on my window that had placed an unmovable knot in my stomach. The third symbol had a tongue, I think. I wasn't sure. My shoulders were tensed up, and my neck felt unbelievably stiff. It was as if someone was pressing onto me. I decided to take a break, and lifted my gaze to my reflection in the window, just in time to see a woman behind me, with both of her hands placed on my shoulders, and an unusually long neck twisted over my head to look at what I was writing. You like to think you know yourself. You believe you'd react a certain way in a situation, but unless you actually go through it, you can never truly know. There are 3 types of responses to this absolutely ghastly, disgusting appearance: fight, flight, or freeze. Apparently, I am the type of person who freezes. I looked up and made eye contact with her. Her eyes were similar to one of those paintings that claims to trap one's soul inside, and her face was unbelievably human, and yet missing something. She didn't smile, cry, or yell. She just stared at me, then lifted a hand with absolutely no lines or skin folds, a completely smooth hand, and placed one of her completely smooth fingers on the paper, on the symbols. I think she wanted me to keep writing. By that point, my heart was pounding in my chest, and I felt incredibly lightheaded. The room began to tremble, then blur, and I think I passed out. I woke up, and I was alone. I think I could see in the hallway, right where the light from the kitchen met the shadows, something like a standing coat, or, I don't know. My breath still stops when I think about that. It's hard to recall. I looked back down at the symbols and decided I would stop searching for this thing alone. My front door was at the end of the hallway, and something tells me that if I'd passed that thing, I would not be alive today. I did the only logical thing and jumped out the window, then got into my car and called a friend. As I was waiting for him to pick up, the woman appeared in my window and tilted her head. I was shaking so hard, I could barely hold my phone. Then, she disappeared into my home. It was her, the woman I'd done the autopsy on, the pregnant woman. She was in my house. "Yeah, you okay? It's late, man," my friend Tom mumbled on the other side of the line. "How can I talk to someone who knows cults?" "What?" "I did an autopsy on a pregnant woman whose baby is missing, and now she's in my house, and she had these symbols on her, and I don't know." "What? Did you hear a thing I fucking said? I'm being fucking haunted, or hunted, or both." I looked up to see the woman standing in my doorway. Fuck. Wes, are you on acid? 'Cause you promised me that if you ever tried it, we'd do it together. I started the engine and looked up to see the woman standing closer to my car. Her hospital gown was drenched in blood, or mud, or both. She bared all her teeth to me, in an exaggeration of a smile, and my hands slipped from the steering wheel from the sweat. Work. Oh my God, God gracious. I yelled all the prayers I knew out loud as I was pulling onto the main street and driving away. I didn't care that the front door to my house had remained practically open. He'd forgotten I was still on the phone with Tom. "Dude, stop yelling. Are you praying? What's going on? Are you alone?" "I'm driving to your house. Right now." "Whoa, wait. Don't get in the car if you're on drugs." "I'm not on drugs. I'll explain everything to you. Wait for me," I declared, then hung up, trying to steer the car and stay in my lane. I think I was crying. When I got there, he was already waiting for me at the door. I explained everything to him, and he fell silent for a moment, before yelling at me. "You're a horrible friend. You bring this shit into my house, with the symbols, and the fucking cult. And what were you thinking? Writing them down? Were you deliberately trying to summon her, or are you just stupid?" "I'm sorry. From what you're telling me, she's part of it, and she wasn't dead when you, opened her up." "Yeah, I figured that out already. Do you have the paper with you, with the symbols?" "No, damn." "Great. How about, we just Google it? I don't think we'll find anything online. Not on Google, at least." He gave me a blank look. "No? The dark web, then? Is that why you called me?"
Yeah. I knew you used to shop there.
"When you got pills and stuff." "Right. So you figured I'd be down to just search some obscure fucking cult." "Yeah." Tom sighed. I knew he was mad, but part of him was still curious, and he wouldn't resist it. Soon enough, we were crouched over his laptop. I don't even think I know how to go through this anymore. It's been a while. I watched him turn on his VPN and whatever else. Since I'm not good with technology, nor can I remember details, he went onto a folder in his computer and loaded a program, then a link or something like that. I was constantly looking over my shoulder, afraid the woman might have followed us. Right, what do I search? Can you reverse image search the rib picture? Honestly, I don't really want to. Might find gory stuff. Okay, search, autopsies. Stuff like that. Cults. We unfortunately got jump scared by some obscure forums and were beginning to lose hope until Tom came across some user's story. This one says, describes symbols such as a flaming triangle, a hand with a missing ring finger, a nail. He says the letters are strangely human, and that his aunt used them when she was part of this society. He claims to be from Alaska. We began reading through his logs. For privacy reasons, call me Keith. Yeah, I mean the most batshit insane rituals I've seen. And believe me, I've seen a lot or tied to the Moe Otherhood. That's their English name. But I think their traditional name is Mahajaka Riha, or worshippers of the dead mother. They originated from some very avid idolizers of Virgin Mary, and developed the ideology that the Antichrist or whatever was going to be born after the death of the mother. He had to be born in death. From death. It's like a whole process, spanning over years. Some other user had asked, so like every woman part of the cult wants to birth the Antichrist? Oh no, they do all kinds of satanistic rituals and whatnot. From time to time, more avid followers think that they can achieve eternal life by trying to birth the Antichrist, but it's rare and very manic. They get pregnant, then go on this weird diet and perform weird rituals alone. Their body goes through those transformations, and eventually they kill themselves and wait to be resuscitated by their sons. Lol, does that even happen? Rare as fuck, IMO. Never heard one case. But yeah, it can happen. It would be tragic though. I mean, even if their kid would turn out alive, its soul would probably be sold to Satan or something, and the mother would turn up some half-dead witch. That scared the shit out of me. Then Mao is tempted to write some symbols and check whether this is true or bullshit. Don't write anything. Don't write anything out loud. Don't do any of that. They're clingy as fuck. My aunt could not get rid of them. What if I already did? Just wait it out. It'll pass. They can't hurt you unless you continue to acknowledge them. If they're after you, just give them what they want. I stared at the text, dated over 7 years ago. They can't hurt you unless you continue to acknowledge them. They can't hurt you unless you continue to acknowledge them. They can hurt you unless you continue to acknowledge them. How much would it count as continued acknowledgement? Did I really have to live my life in danger from now on, petrified to close my eyes? Had I done too much? Was it too much attention? The autopsy, the pictures, writing the symbols down, searching the web. I spent the night at Tom's. I had this semi-dead ex-pregnant woman on my tracks, and something told me she wasn't the only one. If she'd been so disturbing, I sure as hell did not want to meet her baby. On another forum, we'd found ways to cleanse the influence of cults over your life. We drenched everything in holy water, put on Gregorian chants, and went to various churches in the span of 3 days. Now, things seem to go back to normal, at least, in my case. Tom, on the other hand, texted me last night to tell me that he keeps hearing a baby cry outside. I am a horror writer, and I'm out of ideas, and thinking of new ways to scare people, and I found some inspiration. Horror is the most personal genre of stories that you can write. Romance, action, sci-fi, all revolve around what the story itself contains. They are brief, but concise descriptions of the piece of fiction that you're about to read. Horror, on the other hand, transcends the barrier of fiction and focuses on the feeling it gives the reader. That's when it gets personal. Horror is horror because it is supposed to affect you. There are levels of horror and perceptions that are just as different as our own DNA. For someone, Paranormal Activity might be just the scariest ever movie, and others might watch it as a bedtime story. An action movie fanatic will watch variants of the same movie for hours on end, just for the adrenaline and fight scenes. A scary movie or story fanatic will change their taste, and the more they watch, the more immune they'll become. Do you remember Bloody Mary? I do. 4th grade me was terrified. Now, I don't care that much. I've become desensitized to most stories, and begun to notice patterns all stories have. Creepy house/doll/ritual, protagonist that says something like it will haunt me forever, entity, whatever. I get it. It's not the lack of originality that pisses me off, but the fact that it's just not scary anymore. Even if someone comes up with something new, some concept that hasn't been done before, it is lazily executed, and the story itself is butchered and given a bleak ending, which enrages me. I can't write anything that doesn't scare me. I need to feel it too to know if the story is good. Since I have years of experience of reading horror, and my tolerance is built up, If it manages to scare me, it will scare 90% of my readers. I figured I hadn't written a good story in a while, so I began searching for ideas. I picked on random things and concepts from around my house, garden, work, whatever, tried to find some twist to my day-to-day activities. Late at night, drinking a glass of water on the porch. What if something were to whistle far in the darkness? Overdone. It would probably be followed up with some ominous ending, some creature or mimic. Driving home. What if the radio suddenly let out a warning to not go home? Aliens, mimics again, doppelgangers, pandemic. Again, not that scary. Would be interesting for a minute. Then my readers would forget all about it. I just couldn't find anything that really intrigued me. I figured I just consumed too much horror, so I needed a break. I rented out a cabin in the woods and tried to go on a detox kind of thing, where I'd sit in silence for days. No TV, no phone, just me in the forest, so that my imagination would start working again. It was around the third night of my stay, and silence was now imprinted in my mind, my movements, my dreams. I had imagined various scenarios of stories, but nothing satisfied me enough. A knock at the door pulled me out of my thoughts. I waited, thinking I must have imagined it. The house waited with me, ready and silent. The knock came again. I put one foot in front of the other and followed the sound to my front door. When I spoke, my voice sounded hoarse, almost unrecognizable. Yes? I have a package for you. Sorry? I have a package for you. Right. I don't live here. The owner doesn't come back until... No, this is for you, Reuben Hollis. I didn't order anything. You asked for inspiration. I tilted my head, staring at a random spot on the door. Inspiration. Was this one of my fans? Who are you, if you don't mind? The person didn't answer. The windows were beginning to darken their blue hue as night made its way to the cabin. Soon enough, moonlight would begin to slide off the wooden furniture and wool rugs, dusty photo frames and antiques. It was cold, but not cold enough to turn on the heating. Another uneventful night would follow. And yet, I wanted to open the door, so I did. The porch was empty, and a cardboard box was sitting in front of me. No labels, no nothing. The person had left. Now that I think about it, I can't remember whether it was a woman or a man's voice. I stared at the box for a while, afraid to step outside and take it. What if someone was waiting for me to do that, so they could sneak behind me? What if the dark trees concealed something even more sinister, watching me? I lifted my gaze to the alley. Yeah, I was afraid of, animals, at least. That's what I told myself. I lifted the box and shut the door behind me, locking it twice. Now, I was sitting at the dining table with the box in front of me, debating whether to open it or not. I'd seen this before, and the possibilities of its contents were endless. It could have been a human head, photographs, an endless void, or a prank. Most likely. Yeah, a prank, surely. I opened it like ripping off a band-aid, then looked away. Staring at the wall, I just couldn't pull myself to look inside. Finally, I turned slowly and peeked. Inside the box were a bunch of papers, of all sizes and origins. Photos, receipts, prints, envelopes. Should I touch them? Could I? What if they were dangerous, or poisoned, or laced, or crime evidence that I was contaminating? Jesus, no one's out to get me. I should just calm down. I noticed the papers were grouped and stapled together. I lifted one of the groups. The first piece of paper had a name on it, Paula Salvador. I flipped through it and found a shopping receipt, an address and print screens of some user's activity online on multiple forums, with certain words and sentences highlighted and annotated. The last paper of this group had a few phrases scribbled in ink. When Paula was younger, she was out driving with her dad very early in the morning, and a horse jumped out and landed on their windshield, breaking it. Broken glass went into her legs, and the bloody scene remained imprinted on her for years. She is now afraid of horses, and she never sits in the passenger's seat anymore. I realized the extracts were laying out this random woman's life, and pulling out her darkest secrets and fears for me to read. I put the group aside and picked another one from the hundreds still waiting in the box. I skimmed through it, then another, and another, until I'd covered about 10, some really disturbing, others mild and yet intimate glimpses of the lives of strangers. Some of them contained weird, really specific fears. Ollie Higgins, afraid of being eaten by rats in a tight space. Jen Warner, afraid of AI eventually killing her. Ian Harold's, afraid of accidentally killing his mother. The papers were deeply personal, and I realized they practically contained cheat codes to scaring these people. Those were their weak points, their soft spots. That's when I remembered that horror was the most personal of genres, and my mind moved on to form another expected connection. What if I could combine these specific fears and situations and tailor stories to fit my readers? What makes an experience truly scary? The feeling of being known, of being seen. How personal it is. The more specific, the more unnerving. Imagine being Paula and scrolling to read a story about a horse attacking a car in the middle of the night. Makes your breath stop a little, doesn't it? That night, I turned on my laptop and began crafting the first of many stories. I tied together around 5 groups of papers, inserting weirdly specific things from the lives of these strangers and making it as ominous as I could. Then I posted it and went to sleep. The next day, it had blown up. I scrolled and read the comments. That was weird and unsettling. Whoa, I never thought I'd see this trope executed like that. It's noon and I'm scared shitless. I fucking hate horses. This feels like someone reached inside my mind and pulled out one of my fears. Congrats, OP. Really good story. I smiled, pride warming up my chest. I'd found the key to writing stories that latch onto the minds of my readers. I worked and worked, day and night. I'd counted the material in the box and found a total of 213 sets detailing fears and weaknesses. That would last me enough to really distinguish myself as a writer. The strangers I'd read about began appearing in the comment sections of their respective stories, admitting to how unsettled they felt while reading them. Soon enough, people began to notice me as a writer, and not just a username that occasionally pops up with a story. Well done again, Ruben. I shit my pants. I can't wait for your next post. OMG. 3 months had passed, and my following doubled, then tripled, then doubled again. Soon enough, I got my first headline. Meet Ruben Hollis, the writer who knows you better than you know yourself. More stories followed, and I got my first book deal less than 6 months after receiving the package. Things were going really well, but I was running out of papers. I jokingly stated I had writer's block, but I knew that once the very intricate studies of strangers' lives stopped fueling me, I'd run out of content. I booked another trip to that cabin and waited around in hopes of another package arriving at my doorstep. In 3 days, the now familiar knock came again with a box, with its bearer nowhere to be seen. This went on for 3.5 years, a time where I published 4 books. As my supply ran out, I would book another trip to the cabin and wait for the visitor to drop off what I needed. I didn't know who they were, but I didn't care. My last trip to the cabin had me wait a bit longer for the package. When it finally came, I opened the box to find a single set of papers, stapled together. Ruben Hollis. I rubbed my face and stretched my neck. The box was comically large compared to the single stack of papers laying at the bottom. Somehow I didn't want to read it. There wasn't anything I was afraid of. Over the past years, I'd written about every single fear a human being might have. There was nothing left for me. I decided I wouldn't read it. I didn't need to know. I took the papers and put them away and left the next day. I knew that had been the last package, and I didn't want to push my luck, so I retired from writing and spent the next years living off the money I'd already made, completely forgetting about my own file. Last Wednesday, I heard a knock at the door. Yeah, you didn't use the contents of the last package. If you don't write the story, it has nowhere to go, so it haunts you. I retired. You have to write the story. Those are the rules. It wouldn't scare anyone but me. It's pointless. It's not pointless. This is something easier for you, your last prompt. Then, it slid something under my door. I stared at the crumpled piece of paper, then lifted it. The single sentence stared back at me. Ruben Hollis, afraid that the man behind his laptop is real. I shook my head, then threw away the paper. That's bullshit. You're not afraid of that, I muttered to myself as I rummaged through drawers searching the other papers. Ruben Hollis, afraid that the man behind his laptop is real. They all had the same fucking thing written onto them. That trope was so overused, I could never be afraid of it. Ever. Yeah, sometimes when I was writing at night, I used to fear the darkness behind my laptop, but that was just my imagination. Nothing more, nothing less. Day and night, I thought of that sentence. For some reason, it refused to leave my brain. I didn't want to write the story because that would make me think about a setting, a protagonist, a plot, which would carve it into my mind forever. There was no man behind my laptop. This morning I found a note inside my pocket. It simply said, "The man is real now, but it's not a man." My heart twisted and my chest tensed up. My stomach felt empty, as if drained from all the blood. My head flooded with thoughts. The papers don't work. And yet they scared my readers. They were accurate, specific. Mine wasn't specific, which is what makes it scarier. It's just a story. Write it. No, now, it's too late. Reuben Hollis, afraid that the man behind his laptop is real. It can't be too late. I remembered how I got the packages. I knew it was unnatural. And yet I didn't question it. I just accepted the offer. Was it too late now to pay the price? Write my own horror story. How hard can it be? The readers that had their fears immersed into my writing didn't have anything happen to them. I mean, I don't think they did. I never checked on them. I would known, right, if their fears had come true. I didn't care. I never cared. I just wanted to scare them. I didn't care to find out how their weaknesses had gotten into the box, or what happened after I'd pulled them out and written them. I like scaring people, but the writer was never supposed to be the one scared or studied. I was merely a vessel. This should not happen. I wanted to get this over with, so I started writing. I had this idea to cheat on the rules, since they hadn't explicitly stated how to incorporate the prompt into my writing. I just wrote exactly what had happened until this very point. That's a story, right? From time to time, I'd glance at the 2 notes on my desk. Reuben Hollis, afraid that the man behind his laptop is real. The man is real now, but it's not a man. I finished it with some generic "it was all in my head" thing, then posted it. I wrote it with the night on, so that the darkness behind my laptop would not creep me out. Relief washed over me as I refreshed the page and saw the upvotes coming in. I glanced at the 3 notes on my desk. 3? Wait, no, 2. I'd put 2 pieces of paper out there, and yet another one had been placed on top of them. Hello? Close your laptop. A sudden wave of dizziness hit me, my ears ringing from the tension. There was no way I'd close that laptop. And look, I leaned back a little. I could see under the table, and my eyes widened, my breath scarce, as I stared at the pair of ghastly feet crouched behind. I didn't blink for so long. My eyes teared up. I was not going to move. Ever. I didn't know what to do, but I just figured I'd stall a bit. From behind my laptop screen, a long, dirty and bony finger reached out and pressed the off button of my laptop. The dogs howling outside my house keep scaring the kids. Now, they're claiming the dogs are making faces at them. I am a single mother taking on the challenge of raising 2 children in the middle of nowhere. My youngest Ruby is 4, and my eldest Jade is 7. Sometimes I feel like our presence isn't enough to fill the 2-story farmhouse we live in, surrounded by never-ending fields, pierced by a single road, our connection to the town nearby. I could never leave the property. The family business relies on the farm, and my job is to keep it alive and going. I did feel stung by fear from time to time, when it came to managing business and my 2 kids, especially because I had no support from anyone. But time passed, and I stopped feeling lonely or insecure. We had plenty of dogs around the house, some sort of precaution I subconsciously took for me and my girls. I felt like if anyone were to come near us, the dogs would keep us safe, since they'd be trained to bite, scratch, and scare away anyone but the 3 of us. Their barking was our alarm, but we usually had nothing to worry about, apart from animals or friends passing. We'd just come home from a road trip to my mother's house and were exhausted. Our car had broken down halfway through the woods, and we had to stop at a random couple's house to call for help. By the time we managed to get on the road again, over 6 hours had passed, and Ruby and Jade were irritated and tired beyond measure. I unlocked the door, and they sprinted up the stairs. I remained behind them in the doorway, key in hand, taking in the creaking of the house and the humid air. It was 11 p.m., and darkness and coldness had suffocated the building and its hallways, and sometimes I felt uneasy even if I'd practically grown up on that farm. Something rattled behind me, and I turned around facing the porch and my car, barely visible in the night. I remained waiting, my back straight, until I heard the first raindrops. Then I shut the door behind me and locked it. That night, the rain fell and fell on our rooftop. The wind shook our home to the bone, and the walls trembled under the storm. Our dogs howled. Lord's, their barking was so unnatural, almost fearful, tearing down through their throats, hoarse and desperate. They'd never howled like that. Ruby and Jade slept in my bed that night. The storm hadn't done too much damage, and yet it left a looming presence over us, almost as if we were waiting for another one to finish the job. The next night, as I was tucking Ruby into bed, the silence of the house was pierced by a long howl. We froze, then barking followed, sustained only by one dog. "Is someone outside?" Ruby muttered, stretching. "Some cat or what?" "Yeah, probably. It'll shut up soon," I replied, annoyed. I threw a glimpse out the window and saw nothing. I went to bed, but the howling continued. I hated those occurrences when one of our dogs decided on a random night to just go nuts at whatever the hell he fixated on. "Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up." I tossed and turned, but the goddamn dog would not stop. Finally, I went downstairs and through the back door, and there he was. One of our dogs, Samson, barking like a lunatic at nothing. "Sams, honey, what are you doing?" I mumbled, searching for anything in the night. "Who's there?" Samson stopped barking the minute I opened the door and just stared at me. I thought I couldn't stand his howls, but now the silence triggered me in a different, unexpected way. He was a tall, lean dog of no particular breed, with dark eyes, sizzling like pieces of charcoal. His quietness surprised me, and I stared into his eyes for a few moments, but sensed no fear. I looked up to the distance, the vastness of the fields, so far away that the kitchen light couldn't reach. The silence was heavy, and Samson was as still as stone, looking straight at me. I suddenly felt very little, and just wanted to get to my girls, so I stepped back to shut the door. The moment I swung it, Samson leaped towards the entrance of the kitchen, but I'd been faster. I shut it and locked it, hearing his body slam against the other side. Then, he let out a long, hoarse howl. It sounded vulnerable, human. I sat there trembling in disbelief. Took a sharp breath, bit my lip, then shook my head and went upstairs up to the last floor to my girls' bedroom and slept on their floor. I couldn't show them I was afraid of our dog, who was supposed to protect us. Days passed after that incident, and I almost forgot about it. Even though I found myself to stare a bit longer at Samson, he didn't follow up with anything peculiar after that night. I dismissed the whole thing and focused on other problems, since I had plenty to pick from. I think 2 weeks had passed after that, when a cold, slippery hand woke me up in the middle of the night. I opened my eyes to greet Jade on her tiptoes, looking down at me, unsure of what to say. Why was she still on her tiptoes and whispering? She'd already woken me up, and Ruby was right behind her. "Mom, the dogs are howling again." This time it wasn't just Samson. The howls formed a hoarse, crying mess that bounced off our walls and echoed into the darkness. And it wasn't just annoying, the way you'd throw a shoe at a dog barking at the moon, but plain disturbing. They were desperate, eating into the silence, hungry for screaming, for crying, for mourning. I stood up and rushed to the window. Something had to be around our house, passing, or maybe a burglar had studied our farm for the past weeks and was slowly making his way in. Our home was big, and dark thoughts began racing into my mind. Thoughts of shadowy figures looking for my girls, my money, my home. "They've been howling for days, Mommy," Jade mumbled. "You can't hear them 'cause you're sleeping all the time, but they're there, and they won't stop. It's scary. I can sleep." I hushed them and told them to sit still in my bed, as I closed the bedroom door and tiptoed to the ground floor. Our dining room had 2 large sliding glass doors, and at night it felt like our whole wall was missing, and you could see straight into the cornfields. It was moments like these where I was fully aware of how small we were, and how isolated. Around us, acres of land spilled and spilled into the woods, blending into the pitch-black sky, and a never-ending darkness surrounded my home. What could I even do? Even if someone was trying to break into my house, could I just call the police and tell them that the dogs are barking, without even identifying an intruder? As I approached the doors, my head spinning, I made out the silhouettes of 3 out of 8 of my dogs. Among them was Samson, and they were barking like crazy. I slid one of the doors open, and just like the other night, they stopped barking and just stared at me. I stared back like a fool, not knowing how to react. Other dogs were still howling around the house, but Samson, Penny and Jack were still looking at me calmly, their eyes too human, too tamed, almost as if they knew something I didn't. Before I could close the door, Samson let out a low hoarse growl and stepped back. Then all 3 of them left. I heard their howls from the left side of the dining room, and I sat and listened for a few seconds, shivering in the cold night and holding onto the glass door like holding onto a lifeline. I was hoping I'd hear something else, like footsteps or a voice, something human that would justify my animals acting so strange. I closed the door and locked it, my eyes half closed from the tiredness and my throat dry. I had no idea what to do, and I felt the pressure of my actions as a mother, aware of them affecting my children's lives too. As I got to the 2nd floor, I noticed my girls had shut all the doors and found them sitting still in my bed, wide-eyed. "Are you okay? The dogs are just going crazy at these cats outside. I'm sorry. I know how scary it can feel. But it's all right, I promise. Do you want to watch some TV?" They didn't answer, but stared at me. I took it as a yes, and we eventually fell asleep, huddled together. The next night, I was awoken again, this time by Ruby. Her tiny silhouette was shivering from the cold, and her eyes were bloodshot. "Ruby, are you crying?" "Mommy," we looked out the window. "What did you see, honey? Were the dogs being bad again?" The dogs were making faces at us. A long pause followed, where I shifted my gaze from Ruby to Jade, raising my eyebrows. I understood the howling scared them, but I didn't know it had slipped into their dreams too. "Did you have a bad dream, Ruby?" "No, Mom," Jade replied. "We heard the barking, and I looked outside for the cats, and Sammy and Max were out there, and they raised their head and looked straight at us. Yeah, and their eyes were really wide, and they were laughing at us." What I managed to understand from their overlapping descriptions sent a shiver down my spine, and my neck tensed up all of a sudden as my throat began to dry up. Jade had said the dogs had raised their heads up to look at their window, and their eyes were really wide. Their teeth were bared as if they were smiling, and they looked, as Jade said, like funny masks. Ruby, on the other hand, chose to mimic the face they'd made. She grinned at me, then raised her eyebrows as high as they could, then let her head fall back, lifting her face toward the ceiling. "I didn't want them to see me like that, Mom, to look at me like that. I didn't want to alarm them more than I already had, so I told them that it might have been the moonlight hitting weird and that I would check it out. I followed them to their room and looked out the window but saw nothing. The ground was bare, and nothing moved outside, not even the wind. I barely managed to get them to sleep again." The next day, Samson and Max had gone missing. I went around our yard trying to find them, but to no avail. It was as if they'd never existed, and I never saw them again. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I was going to pull an all-nighter and look out for anything dangerous or weird that would occur outside. My girl's bedroom was facing the fields, while mine, the road, so that night I waited for them to fall asleep, then tiptoed inside and sat still at the window, waiting. I was sitting on my phone, one headphone in my ear, so as not to wake the girls. After midnight, my neck and legs went numb, and after 1 a.m., I began to blink mechanically and yawn every other minute. I was about to give up when I heard a teasing, low howl right under that window. I looked down, and what I saw jolted me awake. Jack was looking straight up, to me. His blue eyes were bloodshot, but I could still see the whites glistening in the moonlight, and he smiled. His smile looked grotesque, a mockery of our human smile, a grin bearing all teeth, and the skin of his face was stretched to make room for all those teeth, white and sharp teeth. That, and he looked taller, almost as if he was standing on his hind legs, looking up at me and grinning. Panic filled my bloodstream as I couldn't help but sit there, frozen, staring at that awful image that is now engraved onto my brain forever. After what seemed like centuries, I turned to Ruby and Jade, and to my phone, hoping he'd go away. I knew there was no way he could get into the house, and I knew that the next day I would call the police. When I looked back outside, he'd disappeared. The next day, he'd vanished off completely. I'd been left with 5 of my 8 dogs, and I was beginning to fear that the 3 missing had never truly gone away. I feared they were nearby, waiting. I didn't know what they waited for, and I didn't want to give the weird shit that was going around my farm the chance to hurt us. I called the police. When they came, they looked everywhere. My house, my barn, the stables, the basement, the attic. They had found nothing, and were now looking at me compassionately, as if I was some crazy lady who got spooked by living alone. I had nowhere to go and I couldn't leave the farm, so I stayed. Last night I was downstairs, playing with Ruby, while Jade was watching TV. Ruby asked for a glass of water, and I went to the kitchen to get one for her. When I came back, I told them that night, they had to go to sleep earlier. They complained, but I managed to get them upstairs. "Mommy, why are you sleeping with us here? There's no room." "I'm just cold." "Come on. Well, fit into the bed." As I lay with them, my mind raced through the events of the night. How I'd double-checked the locks on all doors and windows. How I'd texted my mother, telling her we'd leave first thing in the morning. How, when I'd gone to the kitchen to get some water, I'd seen Jack's face outside the window, smiling at me. The hospital I work at has very strange ways and rules when it comes to performing autopsies. I'm a resident in my 3rd year, and I've just been transferred here. So far, I can say it's been boring. Can you ever? I've met countless patients with the rarest diseases, and been through a lot of difficult situations. I guess that's the adrenaline-inducing med life everyone craves. I was prepared to feel confused, disgusted, even scared, and yet not in this way. I haven't been too precise. Let me rephrase. The hospital I've been transferred to is in the middle of nowhere. I'm talking forgotten village in a valley. Almost no signal, maximum 300 people. Why would I take this job, you ask? Well, they pay me well. And you know how difficult it is for residents to actually make some money. My parents were skeptical at first. Why would they look for staff so desperately that they're willing to pay you that much? Well, Mom, frankly, it's not my business. It is if they're making you do weird shit. Joe, no bad language around little Mel. My mother shushed my sister. Will they though? She followed, frowning. I don't think so. They're just lacking personnel. Think about it. No one wants to go to Foxville in the middle of nowhere and waste their time. Pardon, I meant gain experience. For 7 months, they have to attract you in some way. Okay, but call. Or don't, my dad said. Spare us. It's enough. I have to listen to you complain. 24/7's here. Don't want a mini you on the phone saying the same stuff. All right, I mocked him. I really didn't think anything interesting was going to happen anyway. Mostly old people going for the billionth checkup just to get out of the house and make sure they don't die and they live up to being 188, and kids with a cold. I get there, and it's worse than I imagined. I have to rent this flat, which is mostly the first floor of an old building in the Central Plaza, the 4 square feet town center, and stinks of cigarettes and alcohol worse than I do. I have a roommate I barely see, and a landlord that instructed me from the beginning not to smoke. The hospital is 2 miles away, in what I like to call the suburbs of mega-populated area. It's a rotting building with mold in like half of the rooms, and a questionable basement, but at least the staff is nice. I don't know how they passed all safety and health checks, but fuck if I care. Anyway, I start, and there's nothing unusual going on. I don't have much to do, as I anticipated. Walk around, do checkups, draw blood, assist, talk to patients. How are you feeling, ma'am? And how often do you say that happens? All right, I'll see what I can do. I took some night shifts in the first weeks, but it was extremely boring and the mold was bad for my lungs, so I stopped. Nothing interesting happened during the first few weeks. It was truly just me and the cold mountains, a lone and mysterious wolf against this darkness we call life. I don't know what was going to kill me first, mold or the boring routine. Sometime around 9 p.m., as I wanted to leave, one of the nurses approached me and asked whether I wanted to take an extra shift for the night. Before I opened my mouth to tell her kindly to fuck off, she said something that stopped me. We need help at the morgue. I paused, mouth open. I narrowed my eyes. Who died? She didn't answer. People really die here? Wouldn't the population go down by like half? She scoffed. You should really take things more seriously. I accepted, just to break this endless cycle of waiting around. I was writing a report for an old lady, and she tried to make small talk. She looked at me, narrowed her eyes, and asked me where I was from. Does it matter? I'm here now. Of course it matters. You're transferred to the basement now. They must really like you. The old lady looked familiar, but I couldn't place her anywhere in my mind. She wore this flowery coat and had blue eyes that moved around a lot. I frowned. Yeah? Yes. Tell me what you saw the next time we meet. Okay? Whatever that meant, I thought. The winter air was really getting to me, so I closed the window, then remembered the mold situation and opened it again. When I did, as the glass moved, I saw the old lady's reflection suddenly bending down and turning her head really quick. But when I turned to look, she was sitting in the same position, looking at me and smiling. I looked back at the window's reflection, and there she was, still bent down. I figured I must have been hallucinating due to the mold. The high pay was beginning to matter less and less. Lights flickering. The air got considerably colder as I got to the basement. It looked depressing, and the hallways were really narrow, with yellow walls and creaking doors. For the first time, I missed the familiarity of my tiny flat. There was one doctor there, bent down over something. There. Hi, you're Mr. Lake. He didn't answer. He was humming something. I noticed he had his stethoscope on, so I patted him on the shoulder. He didn't flinch, just calmly turned around and looked at me. I saw a dead squirrel behind him, the subject of his examination. I was listening to some tunes. Hi. Inside the squirrel. Yeah, you get it. I stared at him puzzled as he stumbled to a drawer and pulled out something. You must be Mr. Hannigan. Sign. Is this an NDA? Don't worry about it. I actually will worry about it. I'm not signing this. What's going on? He paused and remained like that for a while. I could hear the creaking floors in the hallway. Is there someone else with us? Well, yeah. You'd think we were alone here. Who in their right mind would be alone here? He laughed. I frowned. We're together. We're not exactly alone. God, you're still talking. Be quiet, Mr. Hannigan. Sign this, and be quiet. I don't know why, but I did. Dr. Lake went into the hallway, and I heard some whispering. Then he came back. Okay, they'll bring them in very, very soon. Them. There's more. Yeah, we die in pairs around here. Right. That was the least weird thing I'd heard tonight. I didn't even question it that much. We sat next to each other in the cold room for a while, and nothing happened. Just waiting in the silence, disrupted by one ticking clock and the wind moving the branches outside. As much as I was freaked out, I was a bit curious to see what was going to happen next, and judging by the non-disclosure agreement I had to sign, the night was not going to be uneventful. Is your name really Dr. Lake? I asked. The man flashed me a smile. It used to be Blake, but I gave a letter up. Then, right as he looked up to the doorframe, his expression dropped. I turned to look, but nothing was there. They're here, he mumbled, half excited, half nervous, as he sprinted through the door. I followed, and to my surprise, someone was really there, a nurse wearing 3 crosses around her neck, bringing 2 bodies on 2 distinct tables. When she saw us, she nodded. Her face was made only from sharp angles and rough tones, and her eyes had no warmth, no movement, even when she looked at me. Her lips were paper-thin and violet, and her hands covered in cuts. She didn't speak, but Dr. Lake thanked her, and we pulled the 2 tables inside the room. The post-mortem room was cold and sterile, its metallic surfaces gleaming under the harsh clinical lighting that cast sharp shadows across the space. In the center of the room, the 2 stainless steel tables stood like grim altars, each one slightly angled with drainage channels for fluids. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant, a sharp contrast to the heavy silence that seemed to settle over everything. Along the walls, cabinets held an array of gleaming surgical tools, scalpels, bone saws, forceps, all meticulously arranged for easy access. A ventilation system hummed quietly, ensuring the air remained cool and sterile, while a sink in the corner provided a steady trickle of water, the sound a soft but constant reminder of the room's grim purpose. Yeah, air ventilation. Good luck beating the mold, I thought, but noticed that this room seemed to be free of mold. It was almost as if it didn't belong to the hospital. Mr. Hannigan, I need you to take out a notebook and write down what I tell you. I obliged, expecting instructions, initial observations, or anything like that. Right, Rule 1. Rule 1. Don't talk to strangers. I smiled at the joke, then hovered my pen above the paper, waiting for the actual rule. You done? I looked up, still expecting. Dr. Lake was studying me, impatient. Rule 2. Wait, Rule 1 was, don't talk to strangers. Come on, hurry. We have to be done before the sun rises. What do you mean? I'm sorry. Was that a joke? I am dead serious. In this, area, you don't talk to no one. Just me or anyone, you know. You see others working in the basement. You do not approach them. You don't talk to strangers. I pressed my pen into the paper and distantly wrote, don't talk to strangers. Rule 2. Always examine everything around. A death is not just the end of a life. It is a separation that bends the universe and snaps it in half. Such thing disrupts the atmosphere, so be mindful of your surroundings. Sometimes the clues are not in the dead body, but everything else around them. Great, I thought. This doctor was fucking crazy. Maybe that's why no one wanted to work with him. Rule 3. Look in the mirror often. It helps you be grounded. Rule 4. Don't look at the blood too much. Rule 5. No. Their eyes don't follow you around. You're imagining things. Even if it feels real, don't panic. They can't judge you. Rule 6. Don't look at the photographs before you finish. Just take them and let them develop. By the time you have your verdict, write it on the back of the photographs and let them listen. Rule 7. When you're done, thank them, but don't fully close the door. They need to leave. Get out of the basement quick, before they get the chance to follow you home. I was insanely freaked out by the time Lake finished dictating, and he must notice, because he laughed. Don't worry, Mr. Hannigan. I am a professional at this. God, you should see your eyes. They just keep darting to the door, like you're debating whether to make a run for it or not. Trust me, nothing will happen to you. Nothing. I feel like I should at least know what they're for, Doctor, just so I know how to behave. For a moment, he stared at me fully expressionless. Then his eyes drifted to a fixed point in space, and he tilted his head. Yeah, all right. But I'll make it quick. We really need to get to work. I nodded. Remember you signed the NDA? Yes. That implies no words to anyone. Mom, girlfriend, sister. Yes, sir. All right. His eyes were glistening. They should have told you more. I don't know why they didn't. So, have you ever heard of a purgatory? Purgatory, in religious and spiritual contexts, particularly in Roman Catholic theology, is a state or place of purification or temporary punishment, where souls of those who have died in a state of grace undergo purification to achieve the holiness necessary to enter heaven. It's not a place of eternal damnation like hell, but rather a transitional state for those who are not yet ready to stand in the presence of God. I nodded, and somehow, in the silence of the room, in the cold company of the two sheet-covered bodies, it felt like I wasn't the only one listening. In a broader non-religious sense, purgatory can refer to any kind of liminal in-between state of suffering or waiting, where someone endures hardship without yet reaching a final resolution or outcome. There are numerous energetic points on Earth where the fabric of out-telluric planes shifts and gathers, and cumulations of energy do happen. Those places become heavy and very important to the passing of souls. His eyes were locked on mine. Listen, Hardin. I hadn't expected him to say my name. This is one of them. I opened my mouth to speak, but he motioned at me to shut up. This village is built specifically for these. Long ago, way before history got its name, our people realized that, right when we came to know what a ghost is, and when we tried to communicate with them, we found out. Purgatories happen on Earth, because the spirit is still very human and tied to its body. This hospital is specialized in this. In the corner of my eye, I could swear I saw the white sheet softly lift and come back down, as if the thing behind it was breathing. When you say specialized, he cleared his voice. You felt it. Look at me. I did, and his playful allure had dropped. He was focused and sober. Hardin, you've worked with them. No. This hospital is not your usual one. How did you find out about this job? It couldn't be. Through a friend. Do you remember their face? No. Exactly. There's a reason why the mold doesn't affect the patients. They're already dead, waiting. Only, they don't fully know they're dead. That's why we hold them down with fake examinations, until their time to get judged comes. Down here. But, why us? You mean you don't do their autopsies? To find out how they died? No. I do the autopsy to determine whether they deserve to go to heaven or hell. That's the real examination. And what's my purpose here? Nothing. I just need your intuition. I blinked, confused. Just watch me work, Lake added, putting his gloves on. And then he began, pulling the first sheet. I recognized the blue eyes and prominent neck veins from earlier. It was the woman I'd talked to that night. I did what he asked me to. I handed him different utensils, some which I recognized, others strange, eyeglass ball, holy water, a pair of glasses, a deck of cards, salt, sage. I noted down his observations. Upon examination of the heart, significant coronary artery disease was noted. Patient had driven one of her past lovers to a suicide attempt, then refused to take the blame for it. The left anterior descending artery was found to be approximately 90% occluded by atherosclerotic plaque. Patient knew a family friend abused by their kind, but said nothing. The notes kept going, and all I did was stand and write. He took some pictures for the file. Then after 2 hours, he declared head finished and started putting her back together. You have your verdict? I asked. Yes, I do. That's when you come in. I have concluded the theoretical research. I need you, because you don't have any knowledge in this field and our objective, to use this stethoscope and listen to her chest. Hear her song, and tell me what it is. That's how she presents herself to others. And I needed to conclude my research. Hesitant, I put the stethoscope on and placed it on the woman's chest. I hear nothing. Wait. I did. At first, she was silent. I imagined her chest, drained of life, and the air flowing inside. Then thought of the impossibility of me ever hearing something. Maybe this is really crazy. I thought I was waiting for someone to jump from behind with a camera and tell me I've been pranked, and that I'll see myself on TV soon. Then along came a hush. At first I thought I imagined it. My shoulders and back were tensed up and sweating. Then I heard a snap, followed by others. Yeah, rhythm. I hear a rhythm, sir. Doctor, play it to me. I snapped my fingers the way I'd heard, and Lake wrote something down, then took one of the photographs and wrote in caps hell on the back of it. He folded the photograph without looking at it, and put it in an envelope. One done, one to go. I was about to lift the end of the stethoscope when I heard it loud and clear, coming from the depth of the woman's chest. My eyes widened. The voice had spoken very clearly to me. Dr. Lake saw my reaction and asked me whether I had heard something else. No, it's just, I still need to get used to this. Right. Can I go to the bathroom? Lake raised his eyebrows. We really don't have much time. You can go after. I really need to go now. I saw it down the hall. I'll be quick, I promise. He sighed. Fine. I nodded, then turned and left, closing the door behind me. I could have left it open, but I didn't. This way, if he came after me, I'd hear. I got inside the stall and did my thing, then stopped. The hallway was silent, and so was the restroom. I struggled to hear any footsteps. I waited. There was no window I could go through. My dear, we were in the basement. Then, I heard the click of the door. Hardin? Yeah, just a moment. I'm inside. I just need to puke. It's been too much for me. Okay, I'll wait for you here. I really can't puke with others listening. It feels weird. I heard a sigh. I'll be at the end of the hallway, waiting for you. Okay. I waited until his footsteps reached the end of the hallway. Then for another minute, I got out and turned the tap on for a while. Thinking, the stairs were halfway to the morgue. I could make a run for it, but I didn't know how fast he was. If he could catch me, I needed to walk slowly, until I'd reach the stairs, then run upstairs, out of the hospital, into the night, start my car and drive. 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 I took the plunger and hid it behind me, just in case, then opened the door and stepped into the hallway. Lake's silhouette was at the end of it, waiting. I walked, slowly, one foot in front of the other. He came closer too. Fuck. Say something. Talk to him. God, I thought my stomach was stronger than that. I'm so sorry. It's so embarrassing. It's fine. When I reached the stairs, he'd come closer. In a second, I bolted upwards, skipping steps, fully conscious he was behind me. Fear had emptied my guts, and my heart beat in a rhythm I hadn't ever known. My mouth dry, I reached the ground floor, only to find it empty. The lights were off, and no one was around. The silence was grim and deeply disturbed me. No patients, no doctors. I turned, face to face with Lake. Wish came back. It's not that easy to go. In a moment, I heard a crack and a thud, and realized my hand had produced it. I'd hit him in the head with the plunger, driven by desperation and horror, and now Lake was laying down, his head crowned by a crimson halo of blood that began to spread across the floor. Blind by fear, my heart going crazy and palms sweaty, I pushed the entrance doors wide open, then looked back only once before hitting the gas. I saw Dr. Lake's dead, wheezing body on the floor, and someone minus or something minus going up the stairs. Even if I knew no one else was in the basement, that was enough for me. As I drove away, dozens of silhouettes watched me from the windows of the hospital. I got to my flat and started packing my bags. The words I'd heard inside the woman echoed through my mind. A final warning, a final message. They'll kill you after he's done with the second body, and bring in another young resident the next day. They just use your innocence. My roommate cursed me for turning on the lights and making so much noise in the middle of the night. I wondered how much he knew about this place. As I slammed the door behind me, I couldn't help but wonder what would happen now, after I'd found out everything and spoken about it. Dr. Lake's dead body remained imprinted in my mind, along with his words, which still haunt me. Hours after everything happened, at the diner I've stopped at to write this. We die in pairs around here. My father is a park ranger. He took me with him on the night shift. I should have listened to his rules. This is how the human mind works when you're walking through a forest. You don't think too much. You just let the silence surround you. Feel the soft breeze and the branches crack under your feet. It's in our nature to yearn for such scenery. No matter how much we thrive in busy, concrete-soaked cities, forests are always welcoming and refreshing to us. The air is clear and crisp, and daylight plays hide and seek through the tall branches. It's inspiring and beautiful. Sometimes, though, as you walk on your path, your mind begins to focus on small things, noises, gusts of wind, shadows in the trees. Such silence can be both welcoming and unsettling. Depends on how you view it. Forests are double-sided coins. They hide you away from the tiring city landscape, but expose you to another environment. You're not in control anymore, because this is not your home. You can lie to yourself and build a house there, but you don't belong in a forest. You're merely a visitor. That's national parks for you, an illusion of being in control, the fake freedom you feel when you walk on those marked paths and camp in the square assigned to you, when you think the silence around you is peaceful, but even the silence is an illusion. Visit a forest again, even when it's silent. Is it really? It's not. Complete, absolute silence means death. Fear it. My father taught me that. He's a park ranger, and he's been doing this job since forever. I wasn't much of a fan of national parks, especially because most of the time there's no service and the hikes are killing me. I'd rather enjoy nature by swimming in a lake or skiing. Why break your legs to end up to a high point, just to see a random valley? Not to mention the animals, they were everywhere, and the insects always got on my nerves. I never understood his love for the forest. I guess that was one of the reasons why he started telling me scary stories from his night shift. Looking back, they were obviously made up, but to younger me they seemed believable. I used to think he was so brave for working the night shift. As I got older, I got into horror, and even if I didn't believe in his forest creatures anymore, I still liked the idea of spending the night in a small cabin in the middle of nowhere, just for that dose of adrenaline. When my father said he wanted to take me with him, I accepted immediately. I knew why he offered. See, over the past years, our relationship had taken a big hit. I guess I was growing up, and he didn't know how to handle that. He'd become emotionally distant and seemed to repel any of my tries to open up to him. In return, I'd become uninterested and irritable. In the words of my mother, this would have been a fun way to bond. I guess. We arrived at the park around 9 p.m. His shift started at 10 p.m. and ended at 6 a.m. His Jeep pierced through the darkness and ventured into the woods. The headlights flashed the trees, turning them white against the black sky. I'd never been on this route, but again my visits to the park were rare. We drove for a while. Most of the time, people underestimate the size of national parks. It took us an hour and a half to get to the cabin, which wasn't even in the heart of the forest. I saw it. One single trace of humanity in the middle of nowhere. A tiny wooden cabin with flickering light bulbs and watchdogs. Before we got out of the car, my father stopped me. Listen, there's some instructions you need to follow here. I know it might seem unimportant, but they're crucial. Then he handed me a piece of paper. A list of handwritten rules. At first, they were ordinary. Don't go out alone in the park. Don't leave food out, etc. I thought the rest of the rules had been put there just to freak me out. Dad, I'm not 12 anymore. You can freak me out with this shit. I'm not trying to. You wanted to come here with me, so act accordingly. What even is this? If you see a man without an arm, don't help him. We have all kinds of weirdos around here. And this? If the whistling is near you, it means they're far. My father smiled, but his eyes didn't. Some of these are added by superstitious fellas. It's more of a what if. It's not gonna happen to you. Don't go out alone in the park. Always have a working contact device. Don't leave marked paths, unless instructed to or with proper equipment. Don't leave food out and lock the trash bins. Always keep on the whistle and the badge. If you see a man without an arm, don't help him. Your family is not in here. Remember, there is no reason for you to hear their voices from outside. Lock your car doors, even when you are driving. Check the marks on the trees. There's only 3 types of marks, all triangles, red, yellow, and green. Other marks are not ours. Don't follow them. If the whistling is near you, it means they're far. If it's far away, it means they're near. Beware of dead blue. What is dead blue? I asked. My father sighed. You know when you're out in the woods, when you think what you hear is silence, but you realize there's dozens of sounds around you, from birds to crickets to leaves rustling. Yeah, that's because there's no such thing as silence. Absolute silence. Never. There's always sound, movement, life. Dead blue is complete and utter silence. That's our code name for it. Death-inducing silence. Unnatural. Right. And when that happens, it won't. But if it does, he paused, staring at the steering wheel. Then, his head turned to me. His eyes darted from mine to the window behind me. You leave. That being said, he got out of the car, and I followed. The cabin was dusty and cramped. I couldn't understand how he could spend 8 hours in here. He had a small TV, but it wasn't working. A desk and a mini fridge. You sit here all alone? I asked. Yeah. Why? That freak you out? Don't you get bored? Martin's post is 10 minutes away. Sometimes I just drive over. Nothing really happens out here anyway. My spot is pretty far from the campsites. I just have to patrol from time to time to make sure no one wanders off into the night. But that rarely happens. This is one of the wilder areas, less explored. You haven't explored it all? His eyes sparkled. Wouldn't be possible. So you don't know what's out there. That's the fun of it. You said you wanted adrenaline. There you go. I nodded. He opened the mini fridge and threw me some juice. Orange juice. I'd mentioned I liked this brand once, and he'd remembered. Maybe our relationship wasn't so bad. We sat next to each other in the small cabin. Dad locked it. I'm not gonna lie to you, most of the time I just sleep. Literally nothing ever happens. So you really didn't see any creatures out there, like the ones you told me about when I was little? I jokingly asked. The only creature out there is my manager, and I'd rather face 1,000,000 cryptids than talk to him. I laughed. I leaned in to look out the windows. I can't see anything. Just my reflection. Want me to dim down the light? Yeah. He did, and darkness crept inside the tiny cabin. The woods became more prominent, more vivid. The light made by the moon was unbelievable, and the stars were actually visible compared to the polluted city. The cabin was on a hill, propped up a tree, with a trap door and a ladder leading to our car. We could actually see above the tree line, into the valley. We spent the first hours talking. Somewhere around midnight, I began dozing off. I didn't want to, but I caved in and fell asleep with my head on the desk. He woke me up. I rubbed my eyes in confusion. What time is it? I got a call from Martin. Right. Who was Martin? I mumbled. The other one in the area. He says he got a call from the campsite, and someone's missing. We need to go search for him. We? As in us? Yeah, you'll stay in the back seat. I'm on the phone with Martin right now. I could hear Martin's muffled voice through the speaker. Wait, don't take the kid. Why not? Hell, stay in the car. Paul, it could be one of those nights. We won't get out of the car. You can guarantee that. Well, I can't leave him here. Alone. In the dark. A pause followed. Look, Paul, I understand you wanted to do a take your kid to work day, but I don't know about this one. It could be dangerous. We're literally just going to drive around for a bit. It's fine. Leave him in the cabin. Dad put his hand over one of the speakers, so I didn't understand what Martin told him. His eyes kept darting to the window behind me. He sighed. Martin will come pick me up. You are staying here locked. Turn the lights off and wait for me to return. It's gonna take a minute, and you'll be safe here. What? I'm not staying here alone. What did Martin tell you to change your mind? It doesn't matter. I'll return in maximum half an hour. You can go back to sleep if you want, or I can call you and we can talk. I was afraid, truly afraid. I did not want to show it, especially after I'd complained that nothing interesting happened around there, so I reluctantly agreed. My dad opened the trap door and climbed down the ladder. Then his face disappeared into the darkness. I saw Martin's car pick him up and drive away. Silence followed. I wished I'd been home in my bed. Instead, I sat stiff on the chair and waited. And waited. I began imagining the worst. What if they'd crashed? What if a bear had found them? I didn't want to let my fear get the best of me, but I thought about his legends and the set of rules. I hoped the writers were just paranoid. At around 2 a.m., I heard a knock on the trap door. I felt my chest tighten. Another knock followed. I wanted to respond, but something in me didn't allow me to. Then, I heard my dad's voice. Kev, open. It's cold out here. It echoed through the cabin. My eyes were dry from the lack of sleep, but my mind was fully awake. I stared at the phone, then at the trap door. Kev, open, please. I know you're there. I saw you at the window. I turned off the light, completely. I don't know why I had this urge, but if my dad could see me from the window, anyone could, or anything, and I didn't like to be on display like that. You don't have a key. It locks from the inside. Shit. Yeah. How was it? Did you find him? Yeah, we did. He was drunk off his ass. We helped him return to his friends. Could have been a lot worse. As I was talking to him, I searched for the keys in the drawer. It was strange, because I hadn't heard anyone climbing the ladder, or seen Martin's car drive my dad back to the cabin. How did you get here without Martin? What do you mean? Open up, Kev. I'm freezing. Answer the question. He did drive me here. Didn't see any headlights. They were off, to not draw the attention of animals. Bullshit. I pulled out the crumpled piece of paper. 6. Your family is not in here. Remember, there is no reason for you to hear their voices from outside. My hand was shaking so bad, I could barely grab the phone. I skimmed through my contacts. Cade F. Connor. Dad. I called him. The phone was ringing, yet no sound came from beneath the trapdoor. My dad picked up. Anything okay? In the blinding darkness of the cabin, surrounded by the howling wind, I toned my voice down to a whisper. Dad, someone out there is pretending to be you. A long pause followed. When he spoke, his voice was trembling. Don't open. Turn off the lights. Did you turn them off when I told you? I turned them off now. No, you should have turned them off when I left. I'm sorry. It's fine. Don't talk to it. Did you talk to it? Guilt crept up my spine. I don't know why, but I lied. I did not. Good, stay put. I'm coming after you. But what if the thing sees you? You'll have to face it. We have ways to distract them. It's fine. Don't be scared. I lied again. I'm not. Good. I love you. I'm coming. I wasn't scared for me. I was scared for him. The voice from below continued. Kev, please open. Please. It's cold. I didn't answer. Knocks followed. The voice went on. Did you talk to someone on the phone? Kev, I lost my phone in the woods. Whoever is out there and has my phone is not me. It's not me. It's not me. It's not me. It kept repeating. It's not me. It's not me. I began feeling lightheaded. Fear is one thing, but this was a combination of anxiety, stress, and guilt. I tried to control my breaths, but to no avail. The cabin was spinning around me. It's not me. It's not me. It's not me.
It's not me.
It's not me. It's not me. Shut up. Shut up. And it did. Silence followed. I pulled out the list again and started reading and rereading the rules like a lunatic. I kept listening for noises from outside. The wind was still going. Good. No dead blue. Then, I heard a loud thud from my wall. Another followed, and another. It sounded like footsteps. They moved to the roof of the cabin. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. Whatever was out there was now climbing around my cabin. I could hear the scratching outside. I started to cry and covered my mouth with my hand. I just wanted my dad. I wished I could see his face again. The universe somehow ironically responded because my dad's face suddenly appeared at one of the windows. He raised his hand and knocked. I stared at him through my eyebrows. My head tilted, scarcely breathing. I remained still. He kept knocking. That wasn't my dad. The cabin was tied to a tree at around 10 meters from the ground. He could not be at the window. The creature knocked and knocked, and for what seemed like an eternity, we just made eye contact. Blood was dripping from one of its nostrils. Another phone call woke me from my trance. Kevin, are you there? Are you in the cabin? Yes. And the thing looks like you, and it's at the window. Incoming right now. I'll shoot it. Don't worry. I'm just about to turn a corner. Dad, I'm really scared for you. Martin's coming too. He's okay. Truly, in a few minutes, Martin's car pulled up. I cried in relief. The thing turned its head to look, then back to me. It opened its mouth wide, and using its fingers, pulled the corners upwards to form a smile, then jumped into the woods, into the darkness. Gunshots followed. After a few silent minutes, I called my dad. He picked up. Where are you? I asked. I'm coming to get you. I saw him walk towards the cabin, then heard him climb up the stairs. I unlocked the trap door and hugged him tight. What was that? Please, tell me we're going home. We are. I'm so sorry. I should have never put you through this. Come on. As we walked towards our car, my blood ran cold. It was not something I'd seen or heard, but the opposite. See, the wind had stopped. The crickets had stopped. Dead blue. I sprinted to the car, got into the driver's seat, then locked the doors. My dad was standing in front of the car, confused. That's when I got a text, and I hit the gas. I ran him over, then turned the car around and sped up into the night. I barely knew how to work it out, since I didn't have my license, but I left as quick as possible. Behind me, a car followed. When I got to the nearest checkpoint, I stopped. The car was Martin's. He got out, alone. Where's my dad? I asked. He, took an ATV to get you. Said he'd get there faster. I texted him to turn around, and that you were safe. The text he'd sent me. Martin and I split up. He may get there faster than me, and if he does, he'll text me to turn and head to the checkpoint. There is no one with Martin. He's alone. I'd thought I'd unlocked the trap door to my dad, when he'd actually taken an ATV and turned to the checkpoint. The thing I'd ran over wasn't my dad. and I'd known it since I felt that unnerving silence. However, no one at the checkpoint had seen my father. As I'm typing this, I'm afraid for him, but a part of me knows he's alive. Maybe he took another route, or got lost. Whatever he did, I'll find him. So much has happened since my last update. While I tell you what happened, please keep one thing in mind. Stay away from the forest. Forget everything that I told you the last time, about recreation and nature, and all that. It's not worth it. It really isn't. I didn't want to say it, but deep down I knew. It was my fault that my dad was missing. No matter what cryptic creatures roamed the park, he'd been safe until I showed up. Through me, he'd showed them he had a weakness, and they fed on his fear. Now, it was possible I would never see him again, and it was all my fault. I knew it. I just chose to bury it deep down in my chest, and let it sink deeper in my stomach, a knot that would never disappear. As I was sitting there, at the checkpoint, covered in a blanket and shivering from the stress, Martin approached me. As much as I wanted to ask him about the park, the rules, my dad, something inside me didn't know whether to trust him or not. Was he the real Martin? He sat down next to me. I'm sorry. The night was still cold and unwelcoming. The trees stood tall and sober in front of us, crowned by the dark, never-ending sky. No stars, just a black, soulless night. Maybe clouds had rolled in. I kept thinking of how 4 hours ago I'd been searching for constellations with my dad. What do you mean? I'm sorry for your dad. Don't say that. You say it like he's dead. Martin didn't answer, and didn't look at me either. I turned my body towards him. He's not dead. He isn't. Martin remained silent. Then, without thinking, I punched his arm. He pulled away and frowned. It's not my fault. He shouldn't have brought you here. Tell me everything you know about this stupid park. I deserve it. You owe it to me, and it's the only way I can actually find him. He stared at me for a while, and so long had passed until his response that I thought he had decided not to answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was toned down to a whisper. We thought they were lying, both me and Paul and the others. When we got hired here, we heard the stories, the legends and everything, but assumed those were horror stories passed around. We didn't stop to listen, and didn't believe anything until we saw it with our own eyes. See, this park is huge, and no one ever bothered to explore it. It thought they lacked the resources, but now I see they were just afraid. He stopped to look around. It would be ridiculous of him to hide from anyone right now. Why would he feel ashamed of telling me these? I thought, but then realized he was probably looking around himself to stay aware not of someone, but of something. That's the thing. Even when you've been face to face with the supernatural, your mind still searches for a logical explanation. We started writing down the occurrences, trying to find a pattern or a way to avoid them. We thought that if we wrote down those rules, we might be able to not get inconvenienced much. He wiped his face with his hand. We never knew this could happen. None of us had ever disappeared. We just thought the worst they could do was annoy us, creep us out, hurt us. He was sweating, even if it was freezing outside. He kept shaking his head. Paul always refused to believe. He'd never actually seen anything. I sighed. I felt too alert to let my guard down and cry, but I craved it. Why do you let tourists here? Campers? They only care about those who wander off. They search for it in your soul, the desire to get lost, and then they help you. A shiver ran down my spine, for no reason. I hugged myself, then sneezed. I need your help to find him. Tomorrow morning. No, Martin. He could get hurt. I turned towards the dark mass of trees. He's out there, alone now. Who's out there? Said a woman, coming out of the cabin. My dad. He's missing. She frowned, then looked at Martin. Which post? 62 inches, he replied. Shit. That's my next shift. I could look for him with you if you want. I'll take my car and go to the post. Tell you if anything shows up. Martin looked back at the cozy cabin, warmly lit, then to the dark woods. With a sigh, he stood up and started walking to his car. I followed. He locked the car doors, and then I called my dad. My heart was beating so fast, I thought it would break free from my chest. No answer. I took a deep breath. Right. We should look for his ATV first. We drove back to his post. Then we started checking the other paths around the main road. His ATV couldn't have gotten too far. We found it parked in front of a big oak tree, but no trace of my dad. The trees surrounding it made it impossible for the car to pass through, so we came to the grim conclusion that we had to get out and search for him by foot. We ran over the rules one more time, to be sure. No weird markings. Dead blue, whistling, loved ones, one-armed man. Got it. I held on to Martin's arm as we sunk deeper into the dark trees, our flashlights drawing out more shadows than usual, calling out for him, begging him to come out. I yelled his name over and over, until my throat started to hurt. I could feel branches hanging onto my clothes in unnatural, twisted angles. At one point, we stopped dead in our tracks. Ahead of us, behind a tree, something was moving. Who's that? Oh, wouldn't you like to know? We both froze. What? The old lady voice continued. Who could it be? It was as if she was hiding behind the tree. One of her bony hands appeared from one side, and the other from the other side. She moved them around, tracing the outline of the tree with her fingers. It looked as if she was playing with us, to make the tree seem like it had hands. I knew I had to try. Have you seen my dad? Have you seen my face? She replied, instantly. No. Would you like to? I turned to Martin, right when the old lady, or whatever it was, jumped from behind the tree. Even though I hadn't seen her face, I could make out how grotesque it looked, judging Martin's expression. He fired a few shots, and I heard a wail like nothing else I'd heard before. It felt as if my ears were ripped off. Then, silence. I don't think this is safe, Kev. No shit. I'm sorry about your dad, but I'm sure he's fine if we just search for him in daylight. No, he could die by then. Every moment is precious. I thought Martin was looking at me angry, but I realized two things. One, he wasn't looking at me but behind me, and two, he wasn't angry, but confused. Kev, don't move. Right in that moment, I heard a whistle far in the distance. If the whistling is near you, it means they're far. If it's far away, it means they're near. I opened my mouth to scream, but right in that instant, as Martin reached for me, I blacked out. When I woke up, I had a terrible headache. I was still in the woods, but Martin was gone, and so was his car. I felt incredibly drained, and my hands were shaking so bad I could barely lift them up. I started walking back to my dad's ATV, hoping I could take it and move on with my search. I checked the time, but something else stood out on my phone. The date. It was 1 day later. I'd been in the woods for a whole day. My head foggy, my body stiff. I got on the ATV and figured out how to start it, then drove back to the main road and to my father's post. I could see the light on and make out a silhouette. I stopped, studying its outline. It looked like it had only one arm. If you see a man without an arm, don't help him. It was too late. He'd seen me and was climbing down the ladder. I got back on the ATV and drove away. Right when I was halfway through, I ran out of gas. Behind me, footsteps. Kid, hold on. I see you met my wife earlier. What a fine woman she is. My head was pulsating. Don't fucking come near me. Come on. You want to find your dad or not? You wouldn't know where he is. Bullshit. I spoke to him this morning. Rage filled me and replaced the fear. I got down and turned to the old man who had been limping behind me and hit him. Don't speak about him. Don't you dare. The old man laughed, and I saw his only tooth staring back at me. I pushed him away and started running back to the post. I ran and ran and ran without looking back until my limbs ached of a pain I'd never known before. I got to the post and climbed up the ladder, then locked the trap door and called my mother, who was worried sick about me. I barely managed to get a word out before I collapsed from exhaustion. When I woke up, morning was creeping in. I called my dad one more time. The phone rang a few times. Yeah? Kev? Tears gathered in my eyes. My throat hurt to speak, but I did. Dad, is that you? Where are you? Kev, get out of the forest. They'll let me go. They want you. It didn't make any sense. I stared at the floor, phone in hand, speechless. What do you mean? Where exactly are you? Kev, don't come after me. I can't do that. I can't just leave you there. I could make out heavy breathing on the other side of the phone.
Ida, just tell me where you are. I won't come after you. I promise. I'll be safe. At the checkpoint. I'll send Martin.
His voice was trembling. I don't know where I am. I've never been on this side of the forest. I think it's somewhere east. Do you see any markings on the trees? Yeah, but none of the good ones. These markings aren't ours. These markings aren't ours. I paused, and so did he. I had my phone to my right ear, and suddenly someone whistled right next to my left, startling me. I took a deep breath. Relax. It means they're far. There's something else, my dad said. The cabin felt cold, and yet I was sweating, suffering from an unexplainable fever. I could barely hold the phone anymore. Kev, I'm not alone here. Something else is with me. I can't get out, either. It feels like I'm walking in a circle, back and forth, and I'm afraid to go too far. It's as if it's guarding me. It doesn't want me to get out. I heard another whistle to my left. Only this time it didn't feel like it was directly into my ear anymore. They're getting closer. Right. I have to go. I wanted to hang up, but my hand wasn't listening to me. I just let the phone fall to the ground. In the reflection of the window, I saw myself, mice, pale, dark veins under my eyes, and dry lips. What was going on? I felt like puking. I kneeled, then started rocking back and forth, unsure what to do, how to play this out. I knew that was surely my dad, because the creatures can talk on the phone, but I didn't know where he was, and something inside me told me they wouldn't let him go unless I personally went out to look for him. I didn't know whether Martin would help me again, and, judging by how fast he'd left me alone there, it didn't seem like he was too eager to reach out. My stomach turned, and my chest tightened as I puked on the floor of the cabin. The next minutes were a blurred dolt. I remember my hands and my knees crawling to the trap, then basically falling down the ladder and breaking my ankles on the ground, then trying to stand up and failing. I remained laying on the leaves staring at the sky. I could just fall asleep here, forever. Another whistle to my left, this time further away. I didn't have much time until they found me again. Hey, kid. Fuck no. So soon, I lifted myself from the ground enough to look at whoever was coming. It was the lady from the checkpoint, the one who said her shift was about to start. I mean, that's how it looked. I didn't know whether it was really her. I didn't answer, just blankly stared at her gray leather boots and ginger ponytail. Are you okay? I stood up. She tried to help me, but I yelled at her not to touch me. Stay away, now. A look of confusion swept over her face. Where'd you come from? I want to ask you the same thing. What? She smiled, a bit amused. My dad is missing. You find that funny? She scratched her head. Who's your dad? We had this exact same conversation back at the checkpoint with Martin. You should remembered. I know he's missing, but I don't know his name. I don't know everyone around here, she replied, annoyed. After I'd told her, she shook her head. Never heard of him. Why isn't anyone talking about this? Your park rangers just go missing. Hell, I've been here for 2 days now, and you don't seem to even care. What about my mother? Did you talk to her? Did you talk to Martin? Since his egoistical ass left me here. Martin didn't come back to the checkpoint, she answered, stoically. After that night, we didn't see him again. I stared at her in disbelief. Take me there. If it's really you, I need to talk to more people. I can't be alone here with you. I understand your dad is missing, but it's not exactly like it's so uncommon around here. And please be polite. Don't let frustration cloud your judgment and make you unnecessarily irritable. None necessarily. I have every right to be angry. What do you mean, it's not so uncommon? Martin said no one went missing here. She frowned, tilting her head, then looked away. I was still feeling sick, but at least I could stand on my own legs. Another whistle echoed, this time deep into the woods. Tall trees surrounded us, and the familiar cabin seemed now desolate and rotten. Nothing made sense anymore. Your dad is not the first to go missing. Many went before him, and many will follow. It's not something you can negotiate. It just happens. Martin said. She slowly shook her head. It's not something well known. We don't want to scare our rangers. When I spoke, I sounded choked out. Who else went missing? She hesitated. Silence filled the space between us. and I could tell she was uncomfortable. I didn't give her time to finish. We'd been running for so long that my legs had gone numb, hitting my shoulders on tree trunks and struggling not to trip and roll on the ground. I felt like running was the only thing that could save me. Deep into the forest, I wondered how long someone could go without water or food. At some point, I stopped to sit down. I couldn't take it anymore. My heart was literally telling me that if I didn't stop soon, it would. The moment I sat on the moss, I realized I wasn't alone. I swallowed. I swear to God. In front of me sat the ginger lady. "Go away, please. Leave me alone. I just want to help." "I don't believe you. I went missing a long time ago. I don't remember what I was doing. Patrolling around, I think. Anyway, Post 62 is notorious for interesting stuff happening around. 62, 24, 46. They're not haunted, generally speaking, but energy points. And them, as far as I know, they come from the earth. They're corpses. Forests used to be humanities, cemeteries, and ritual dumpsters in general. I don't know what went on around here, but these woods have swallowed so much blood. It's like mass. This blood, this death, the more it gathers, it creates this gravity and asks for even more. More blood, more death." She was softly murmuring, as if telling a bedtime story. I saw those markings, and even if I didn't recognize them, I was ashamed to call and ask. I thought they'd been part of my training, and not recognizing them would have made me look bad. Back then, no rules were written down. She sighed. "Anyway, I came to this clearing in the woods, and well, I don't remember how I died. All I know is that I was following my mom's voice. I don't remember how it sounds like now." "How long have you been there for?" She ignored my question. "You are still alive. You could leave. I want to, well, tell you it's not that bad here." She smiled, but her eyes didn't. "There's always something to do here. They're always looking for another." I shook my head as she nodded. "Okay. Well, you're looking for your dad. I think you already know what you need to do. Look behind you." I did. Behind me, a blue triangle, almost fluorescent. When I turned back to her, she was gone. I walked and walked, each step muffled by the damp earth and fallen leaves. You know, I'd never been in such woods before. They didn't feel alive in the usual way, millions of little lives roaming around, but they felt like a being of their own, and the earth rose and fell under my feet, almost mocking my breaths. I passed a bridge, then a tunnel in one of these God-forsaken mountains. When I got out, I could hear whispers and whistles. "How are you?" "Why, I'm fine. Just a little ravished." Well, wait. It's soon, I believe." "I believe too. Do you believe?" Yes. Soon. 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 What was about to happen soon? I tried calling out for my dad, since my phone and flashlight had died, but someone else answered, and it wasn't him, so I decided to keep my mouth shut. I passed through this garden of roses, clinging onto my clothes. Roses, our most popular and loved flowers, who never miss a chance to draw blood. In the distance, more trees. One of them looked broken. Coming closer, I realized something was hanging from it, or someone. I didn't recognize their face. I kept walking and saw more, hanging from the trees, their bare feet floating above my head, looming over me. I stopped looking at their faces, afraid I'd see my dad. Eventually, I reached this hill and smelled something burning. Coming closer, I saw this fire, and Martin. The minute I said that, pain pierced my shoulder. My back hit the tree. I smelled something metallic. "Go away," said Martin. "No, it's me. Believe me, I cannot do this now. I already saw you 5 times. I don't believe you anymore." "No, I'm telling the truth." Another razor flew to me, but I dodged it. I started crying and fell to my knees. I told him about the ginger lady, and my dad and the stars and my life, in a way that no doppelganger could. They could try to take my life, but they didn't know anything about it. Martin's gaze softened. He sighed. "I saw over 12 sunsets here. I had to kill them to eat. The mimics. I ate their meat. They mimicked my family, loved ones. They even mimicked you. I've killed my family countless times here, countless." We talked for a while. He told me he didn't want to go any further, because he'd seen a clearing and had a bad feeling, and I understood. At one point, he interrupted me. "Can you hear the fire?" Truly, I heard no rustling, not of leaves, not the fire, no wind. Dead blue. "Run," I did. With Martin behind me, we ran until the moonlight shone freely, without the burden of the trees. We'd reached the clearing. I stopped, breathless. My dad was laying there, unconscious. I threw myself on the ground and grabbed him, shaking his shoulders. My voice was hoarse, and my eyes stung from the tears. "Wake up, Dad. Wake up, please. Now." He didn't. Suddenly, Martin let out a wail. "Oh!" I turned around and saw him and some sort of figure over him. I don't know what it was. "Choose." I froze. Someone had whispered right into my left ear. "Choose. One or the other." Martin was yelling. My dad was silent. I understood then and there. "Dad, I choose him. Let him live." Martin's screams stopped, and my dad started coughing behind me. I turned to him and hugged him tight. He was confused and dizzy. Martin, on the other hand, was laying on the cold earth, his eyes open, his skin bruised, guilt washed over me. However, I didn't have time to process it, because a powerful light shone onto us. A helicopter. I grabbed the ladder without thinking, and helped my dad up. The last thing I saw before I looked up was the ginger lady, sitting cross-legged on the grass, next to Martin's body. We were taken back to the entrance of the park. The next hours were filled with questions about the park, about our disappearance, about Martin's murder. We're now the prime suspects, but I'm just glad I got out, and I know it's because of his sacrifice. However, I'd really like to speak to him again. I can't rest knowing his innocent soul is out there. I plan on giving more updates on my account. There's one other thing. I'd never dare to admit it. Sometimes when I look at my dad, even weeks after what happened, I wonder if it's really him. That's it for tonight's stories, but the nightmares never end. If you enjoyed these chilling tales, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a new upload. Got a scary experience of your own? Share it in the comments. I just might feature it in a future video. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, some things are scarier than they seem in the dark.